My son put his phone beside his father's cufflinks and asked me to approve a childhood I did not recognize. The screen showed a paragraph headed, "Evan Hayes, the man Caroline loves." Halfway down, one sentence had been highlighted in pale yellow. After an unsettled childhood and the early loss of his father, Evan found the stability he had always longed for with the Delaney's, who raised him into the man Caroline fell in love with. I read it twice. Evan stood at my kitchen counter jingling his keys. I know it sounds a little dramatic, but Paige writes like that. Caroline's sister thinks her family raised you? It's not literal. You were 30 years old when you met them. Ma, can you just read the whole thing? I got stuck at the part where I apparently left you in a basket on their porch. He did not laugh. That was when I understood the wording was not an accident, and that he had come to my house carrying a very specific hope, that I would help him say it. The cufflinks lay between us in the small gray box from the jeweler. I had picked them up that morning after having the clasps repaired and the silver polished. They were square, with tiny diagonal grooves across the face. Leonard had worn them to every occasion he considered too important for his brown suit, including our wedding, Evan's college graduation, and a retirement dinner for a man Leonard disliked. "He'll notice if I don't go," Leonard had said while fastening them that night. "You could stay home and let him wonder why. I've spent 27 years making sure that man knows exactly why I don't like him." Evan used to love that story. Now he glanced at the box as if it were a receipt I had left on the counter. I scrolled back to the beginning of the biography. There were photographs embedded between the paragraphs. Evan in a blue blazer beside Caroline at a Delaney Christmas party. Evan laughing with Caroline's father, Frank, on a sailboat. Evan and Caroline standing under an arbor in some vineyard where everything behind them looked expensive and slightly thirsty. The opening described Evan as quietly ambitious, which amused me enough to keep reading. My son had once called me from a steakhouse bathroom because a senior vice president had mispronounced his last name during an introduction. Quiet ambition did not make emergency phone calls between the sink and the hand dryer. The paragraph about Caroline was warm and crowded with details. Her mother's Sunday dinners, Paige helping her choose a college, Frank teaching both daughters to drive in an empty stadium parking lot, the family dog waiting at the window whenever Caroline came home. Then came Evan's half. Unsettled childhood, early loss, stability at last. There was no Leonard except as a loss. There was no me except in the air around the word unsettled. "Who gave Paige the information for this?" I asked. Caroline and I both sent her notes. "You sent her that you were raised by the Delaneys?" "I sent her that they had a big influence on me." She shaped it. "With a shovel." He took the phone from me, tapped the screen, and held it in front of himself. "It's a wedding bio. It's supposed to be sentimental. About your actual life. It is about my actual life." "Then where am I?" He let his arm drop. Outside my kitchen window, my neighbor was losing an argument with a fitted sheet. Mrs. Alvarez had pinned one corner to her clothesline, and the wind had wrapped the rest around her head. For a second, all I wanted was to go help her. I wanted a problem that could be solved with 2 clothespins and another pair of hands. Evan drew a breath through his nose. "There's another section for the parents." "Where?" "It's not in this draft." "So I'm in a different document?" "You're not in a document." "That's not what I meant. You said section." "Can we please not do this word by word?" "The problem is one of the words is raised." He walked to the refrigerator, opened it, and stared inside. Evan had done that since he was old enough to reach the handle. When a conversation cornered him, he checked whether the mustard had developed an exit. "You still buy this kind?" he asked, touching the orange juice. "Yes, it has a lot of sugar. You came here to erase me and criticize my juice? I did not come here to erase you. Well, good. We've cleared that up." He shut the refrigerator harder than necessary. "The printer needs final approval tonight. Caroline's parents already approved their section. Paige needs mine, and since it talks about my childhood, I thought I should ask you." There it was, dressed up as courtesy. What exactly are you asking me to approve? The biography. No, you're asking me to approve your description of me. It doesn't describe you. I noticed. His face tightened. He had Leonard's face when he was angry, particularly around the mouth. That resemblance had comforted me after Leonard died. It felt less comforting with Evan standing in my kitchen defending a sentence that turned his father into an early tragedy and his mother into bad weather. I picked up the phone again. Here. Change it to, Evan was raised by Marlene and Leonard Hayes, and after Leonard's death, he found a second home with the Delaney's. That's generous. That's true. Everybody gets to exist. It's too long. Delete quietly ambitious. He rubbed his forehead. It changes the tone. What tone are we protecting? The tone of the whole weekend. Caroline's family is trying to welcome everyone. This isn't a history book. You have room for the dog. Buddy was important to her. I'm sure he was a wonderful man. This time, Evan almost smiled. I saw it happen and disappear. For 1 second, he was my son again, the one who would call me after a bad day and say, I need you to be mean about somebody in a Christian way. Then he looked at the clock above my stove. I hated that clock. It was shaped like a red apple, and Leonard had bought it at a roadside store after I specifically said I did not want a kitchen clock shaped like food. It had been running 12 minutes fast for 15 years because neither of us had wanted to give the other the satisfaction of fixing it. You in a hurry? I asked. We have the final venue call at 6. It's 5:20. Exactly. I handed the phone back. Then you better go. Ma. I don't approve it. His shoulders fell, but not with surprise. He had expected resistance. What he had not expected was for resistance to survive his schedule. It's 1 sentence, he said. It took 1 sentence to get rid of me. Nobody is getting rid of you. You're the mother of the groom. That sounds less like a relationship every time somebody says it. What is that supposed to mean? I thought of the dress hanging in my bedroom. The first one had been deep green with a soft draped collar and sleeves that made my arms look better than they deserved. Caroline's mother, Diane, had called it elegant, then sent me 6 photographs of champagne-colored dresses the next morning. Just so we don't compete with the florals, she had written. I returned the green one. The champagne dress made me look like an upholstered chair, but apparently it cooperated with the centerpieces. I thought of the guest list and Evan asking if I truly needed to invite the Parkers, who had known him since he was 5, because Frank had business friends who required social cushioning. I had not known what social cushioning meant, but it had displaced 9 people. I thought of 3 Sunday planning dinners at the Delaney's house where Diane kept saying, Marlene, your family, don't lift a finger, while handing me empty serving dishes on her way to the kitchen. None of those things, by itself, was worth a fight. That was the trouble with small humiliations. Each one arrived carrying an excuse for the one before it. It means I'm tired, I said. Evan pulled out a chair and sat across from me. That worried me more than the anger. Sitting meant he had changed strategies. His voice softened. I know this wedding has been a lot. For whom? For everybody. Caroline's stressed. Diane's trying to make it perfect. Paige has rewritten these bios 4 times. If I go back now and say my mother objects, it becomes a whole thing. Your mother does object. I'm asking you not to make it one more problem they have to solve. I looked at him. Who is they? He blinked. You and Caroline? Caroline and Paige? All the Delaneys? Who is they, Evan? You know what I mean. I do. I'd like to hear whether you do. He stood again. This is why I didn't want to get into it. You drove here. To show you respect. No. Respect would have been changing it before I saw it. He pushed the chair under the table with both hands, carefully, aligning it with the edge. He'd been a messy boy and had grown into a man who straightened furniture when people disappointed him. The wording reflects how I feel, he said. The kitchen went very still. He heard it after he said it. His eyes shifted toward the window, then the Apple clock, then the cufflinks. How you feel, I repeated. I'm not saying you didn't raise me. The biography is. I'm saying the Delaney's gave me a kind of stability I hadn't had before. What kind? Ma, don't. No, I'd like to know. Was it indoor plumbing? Regular meals? Did we move every 6 weeks and I forgot? It wasn't like that. Then tell me what it was like. He pressed his lips together. I watched him deciding whether honesty would be crueler than vagueness. You were grieving, he said at last. After Dad, everything in that house was about what we'd lost. I felt responsible for you even when you said I wasn't. With the Delaneys, I got to feel like somebody was glad I had arrived. The words landed cleanly because there was truth in them. After Leonard died, I had kept his work jacket hanging beside the back door for almost 2 years. I had called Evan too often. Sometimes I asked if he was eating when what I wanted to ask was whether I would ever feel necessary again. He had been 21, technically a man, and still young enough to mistake a mother's sadness for an assignment, but the Delaneys had not met him then. They met him 9 years later, after therapy, after the warehouse promoted me, after I learned to eat dinner without turning on Leonard's side of the table lamp. You met Caroline when you were 30, I said. I know how old I was. Then don't hand them credit for years they weren't there. It isn't credit. What is it? Gratitude. You can thank them without turning me into a cautionary tale. Nobody will read it that way. I did. That's because you look for insults from them. I sat back. Do I? He opened his mouth, stopped, and picked up his keys. I wanted to remind him of the mornings Leonard left for work at 4 and I drove Evan to swim practice before my own shift. I wanted to list every electric bill paid on time, every fever, every school concert, every ridiculous science project that somehow became my emergency at 9 o'clock on a Thursday night. I wanted receipts for motherhood, and I despised him a little for making me want them. Instead, I closed the biography on his phone and slid it toward him. I won't approve that sentence. His jaw worked. Fine, he said. I'll tell them you refused. You say that as if I'll be ashamed. I don't know what you want from me. The truth would be a nice wedding theme. He picked up the gray jewelry box. For a moment, I thought the argument was over. Then he looked down at it and set it back on the table. I can't wear these now. I stared at the box. Why not? Because now it feels like you're using Dad to make a point. I had the clasp repaired. You know what I mean? No, Evan. Tonight I truly don't. He walked to the door. His hand stayed on the knob while he spoke, but he did not turn around. I was trying to include you. Then he left his father's cufflinks in my kitchen and took his approved version of childhood with him. The deadbolt caught with a hard little click behind him. I stayed at the table until his car backed out of my driveway. He paused at the stop sign longer than necessary, probably answering Caroline, then turned toward the Delaney's side of town. The gray jewelry box was still open. I closed it and put it in the drawer where I kept batteries, takeout menus, and 3 instruction booklets for appliances I no longer owned. It was not where Leonard's things belonged, but I did not trust myself to walk them back to the bedroom. I might have followed Evan's car in my slippers just to throw them through the window. My phone buzzed. The Hayes Delaney Wedding Weekend group had 43 members and the emotional steadiness of an airport during a storm. Diane sent a photograph of napkins folded like roses. Final decision, ivory or pearl? Frank replied, they're both white. Diane sent him a thumbs down. Paige wrote, pearl has more dimension. Several people agreed with Paige, including a man named Brooks whom I had never met but who seemed deeply invested in napkin dimension. I put my phone face down. It buzzed again. This time it was an email. Hello, Mrs. Hayes. Hope you're having a beautiful evening. Attached is the final biography copy for parental sign-off. Please reply approved by 7 p.m. so I can release everything to print. Can't wait to celebrate with you. Paige had added 3 heart emojis after her name. They were the same pale pink as the wedding flowers. I opened the attachment on my computer because I wanted to see if the wording felt different on a larger screen. It did. On Evan's phone, the sentence had looked like something temporary, still capable of being touched. In the document, it sat beneath a professional photograph of him leaning against a brick wall, hands in his pockets, smiling at someone outside the frame. There were 6 pages of biographies. Caroline's parents each had one. Paige had one. Frank's late mother had a short tribute beneath a photograph of her holding Caroline's hand at some family wedding. Buddy the dog had 4 lines under the heading, "Always in our hearts." I searched my name. No results. I searched Leonard. 1 result. Early loss of his father. The separate section for parents did not appear to exist. I went back to Paige's email and typed, "I do not approve." The description of Evan's childhood is inaccurate. Then I deleted it. I typed, "Please replace the highlighted sentence with, raised by Marlene and Leonard Hayes, Evan later found a loving second home with the Delaney's, whose warmth and generosity helped shape his life with Caroline." I stared at that for a while. It was gracious enough to be engraved on one of Diane's serving platters. I added, "With this correction, I'm happy to approve." Before I could reconsider, I pressed send. At 6:02, Evan called. I let it ring. At 6:03, Caroline called. I let that ring too. At 6:05, I received a text from Paige. "Hey, Mrs. H, saw your note. I'm hopping on the venue call, but we'll circle back. I'm sure we can find language that honors everyone's truth." Heart emoji. Everyone's truth was a phrase people used when one person's truth was about to be treated as a scheduling problem. I shut the computer and carried my coffee mug to the sink. It was still half full and cold. Mrs. Alvarez's fitted sheet had finally made it onto the clothesline. It hung there with one corner touching the grass, defeated but technically airborne. A knock came at my back door. I opened it to find Mrs. Alvarez holding 2 clothespins in her mouth and a piece of paper in her hand. "You got my mail again," she said around the pins. It was a utility bill with my address and her name. The postal carrier had been confusing us for 11 years, despite our houses being different colors and on opposite sides of the street. "Thank you." She took the clothespins out. "You all right?" "Fine. You look like you ate something bitter. My son was here." "That'll do it." Mrs. Alvarez had 3 adult daughters, all of whom called her daily and irritated her in distinct ways. She knew better than to ask for details before I was ready to provide them. She glanced toward the drawer I had slammed harder than I realized. "Wedding trouble? What makes you say that? You've got a champagne dress hanging in your front window like a ghost. I was steaming it. You should steam it somewhere it can't frighten pedestrians." I laughed in spite of myself. She pointed toward my phone, which had begun buzzing on the table again. "You going to get that?" "No." "Good. If it's important, they'll become more specific." The phone stopped. Mrs. Alvarez nodded, satisfied. "See?" As soon as she stepped outside, it started again. This time, the screen showed a photograph of Caroline and me at her bridal shower. Her cheek was pressed against mine, and we were both laughing because Diane had just announced a game involving toilet paper, and I had threatened to leave through the bathroom window. I answered, "Hi, honey. Marlene." Caroline sounded breathless, as if she had run somewhere private. "I just saw your email. I assumed somebody would. I wish you'd called me first. Evan came here. I know, but now Paige is upset." That surprised me. "Why?" "She takes her writing seriously. I'm sure she does. She's spent a lot of time on these. So have I." There was silence, followed by a door closing on Caroline's end. "I don't want us to start doing this," she said. "Doing what? Talking around each other. Then let's talk directly. Did you know that sentence was in there? I read the biography." "Yes. And you thought it was true?" "I thought it was affectionate." "Toward whom?" "Toward my family. That doesn't make it an attack on you. It says they raised him, in the sense that families keep shaping you. That is not the sense people use when they say raised. Maybe not the way you use it." I pulled out the kitchen chair and sat down. "Caroline, if the biography said I raised you into the woman Evan fell in love with, would Diane approve it? My mother wouldn't take it personally." I waited. Caroline sighed. All right, she would take it personally. But that's my mother. Yes. Mothers can be exhausting when they recognize words. That isn't what I meant. I could picture her pressing 2 fingers between her eyebrows. She did that when wedding conversations became less decorative than she preferred. "What did Evan tell you about his childhood?" I asked. "That's between me and Evan. It's printed in a program about to be handed to 180 people. 212. Then apparently it's between me, Evan, and 212 people." She let out a small, unwilling laugh. It gave me hope, which was inconvenient. "Marlene, nobody thinks you abandoned him. Then what do they think unsettled means? That things were hard after Leonard died. Things were hard. They were not unstable. I didn't say unstable." "You're right." The biography found a softer word. She went quiet again. In the background, a drawer opened and closed. Caroline was probably at the Delaney's house, hiding in her old bedroom while the venue call carried on downstairs. "I know Evan loves you," she said. I ran my thumb along a scratch in the table. Leonard had made it while trying to open a package with a screwdriver because walking 12 feet for scissors offended his sense of efficiency. Then why does loving me seem to embarrass him? He's not embarrassed by you. He asked me to approve a story where I don't exist. It isn't about your relationship with him. It's about our relationship as a couple and how our families came together. Only one family appears to have arrived with a past. Her tone hardened. My family has made a real effort with Evan. I know. My parents include him in everything. I know that too. My dad helped him when he changed firms. My mom showed up for him when he was overwhelmed. They treat him like a son. And I have thanked them for that. Sometimes it feels like you resent it. There was the thing beneath the thing. I had heard traces of it before, in the way Caroline would say, "We're doing Delaney Christmas this year," as though Hayes Christmas were a stubborn regional custom rather than dinner at my house. "I don't resent your parents for loving him," I said. "I resent being told their love finally made him whole." Nobody said whole. Stability he had always longed for. Raised him into the man you love. What else does that mean? Paige likes emotional language. Paige should write for prescription drug commercials. "Marlene, I'm sorry. That was unkind." It was. Also accurate. Caroline breathed out sharply, but I heard the laugh she suppressed. For nearly a minute, neither of us spoke. It was not an easy silence, but it was familiar. Caroline and I had once been good at those. Before the engagement turned every conversation into a task, she used to come by after work and sit at my counter while I cooked. She would complain about Evan leaving cabinet doors open, and I would tell her that he inherited it from Leonard and could not be rehabilitated. I liked her. That complicated everything. "Your replacement sentence is nice," she said finally. "Thank you. It's also very formal. It's a biography, not a ransom note. I mean, it doesn't sound like Evan, neither does quietly ambitious." She ignored that. "He's sensitive about how he grew up." I wasn't aware he had anything to be sensitive about. Maybe that's part of the issue. The line stung because it sounded borrowed. Evan had said things to her that he had never said to me, and now those things were coming home wearing Caroline's voice. "What does he say?" I asked. "I'm not going to mediate your entire relationship 10 days before our wedding. I didn't ask you to. You're asking me to defend a paragraph Paige wrote, defend my family for loving him, and explain feelings Evan should discuss with you himself. That's fair." She seemed thrown by my agreement. I continued, "So let him discuss them with me, not through wedding copy. He tried tonight. He told me the Delaneys were glad he arrived. He didn't mean you weren't. He may not have meant it. He did say it." Another voice called Caroline's name in the distance. Diane, bright and musical. "We need you down here, sweetheart." Caroline covered the phone, but not quickly enough. "1 minute," she called back. Then, more quietly, "We're all having dinner Friday to finalize the family schedule. Come early. Just you, me, Evan, my parents, and Paige. We can fix the wording face to face. I already fixed the wording. We can talk about it without email making everyone sound harsher than they are. Email didn't write the sentence. Please." I looked toward the drawer holding Leonard's cufflinks. Does Evan want me there? It's my parents' house. I'm inviting you. That wasn't my question. He's upset. So am I. I know. It was the first time all evening anyone had said that without immediately explaining why I should stop. All right, I said. I'll come early, thank you. But I'm not approving the current version. We'll talk Friday. After we hung up, Paige replied to my email. Thank you for sharing your perspective. We'll hold the file until the family can reach consensus. Attached beneath her message was the same biography, unchanged with a new file name, final_, approved pending Marlene. I laughed so loudly Mrs. Alvarez tapped on her window to see if I was all right. Approved pending Marlene sounded less like a file name than a medical condition. I forwarded the attachment to myself, then moved Leonard's cufflinks from the kitchen drawer to the top of my dresser. They looked undignified beside spare batteries and a coupon for lo mein. I left the box closed. Evan did not call again. Instead, he liked 2 photographs I posted online of a retirement luncheon at work, which was his usual method of indicating that a disagreement had not technically killed either of us. On Thursday morning, he sent a thumbs up in response to a wedding group reminder about parking. I studied that thumb longer than it deserved. At lunch, my friend Renee found me eating yogurt at my desk, while rearranging inventory columns no one had asked me to rearrange. You've color-coded gauze, she said. We carry 6 sizes, and now each size has its own emotional identity. Renee had worked beside me for 22 years and supervised me for 4 of them, though neither of us observed that distinction unless somebody from the regional office was present. She set a paper bag on my desk. I brought you half my sandwich. I have yogurt. You have vanilla paste. This is turkey. I accepted the sandwich. Renee looked at my face while I ate, giving me the same patient stare she used on vendors who claimed a shipment had definitely left Cleveland. What? I said. Evan. Why do people say his name to me like it's a diagnosis? Because you don't alphabetize gauze when things are going well. I told her about the biography. She listened without interrupting, except to ask whether Buddy the dog was still alive. When I said no, she appeared offended on my behalf all over again. He got a memorial? 4 lines. What kind of dog? Golden retriever. They always photograph well. Renee. I'm establishing motive. I gave her the rest, including the phone call with Caroline and the dinner invitation. When I finished, Renee leaned against the filing cabinet. What do you want to happen Friday? I want them to change 1 sentence. That's what you want them to do. What do you want to happen? I peeled the paper wrapper from the sandwich into thin strips. I want Evan to hear it before I have to say it. Hear what? I looked at her. Right, she said. That. The warehouse intercom crackled before announcing that someone named Gary was needed in receiving. We had 3 Garys, and the intercom never specified which one, so all 3 generally ignored it. Renee picked up my empty yogurt cup. Take your own car Friday. Why? So you can leave. I know how dinner works. You know how their dinners work? I pictured Diane's table with 2 forks for every person and candles nobody was allowed to smell because scent interfered with the wine. Point taken. Friday afternoon, Caroline texted to ask whether I still had photographs from Evan's college graduation and his father's last birthday. For the display, she wrote. Only if it isn't too hard. I stood in my bedroom closet with my phone in one hand and the box of photographs at my feet. After Leonard died, I had sorted pictures into careful categories. Before Evan growing up, vacations, holidays, Leonard at work, Leonard being ridiculous. Grief had convinced me that if I labeled enough envelopes, I could prevent our life from becoming a pile no one understood. I chose 8 photographs. In one, Leonard and Evan stood beside the crooked patio they had built together, both pretending the slope was intentional for drainage. In another, Evan wore his graduation gown and held his diploma over my head while I shouted at him to stop bending it. There was a photograph of the 3 of us at a seafood restaurant on Leonard's last birthday. Leonard had his eyes closed. I nearly rejected it, then remembered he had closed his eyes in half the pictures ever taken of him. I added one of Evan and me at an office award dinner 6 years after Leonard died. Evan had driven 3 hours to surprise me and spent the evening telling my coworkers I had exaggerated his adolescence. I set the photographs in a small wooden box and placed the cufflinks on top. If Evan did not want them, fine, but he would have to reject them twice. The Delaney's lived in a large white house with black shutters and outdoor lights that came on before the sun had fully committed to setting. Their circular driveway was full when I arrived, though the dinner was supposedly limited to family. Paige's convertible occupied enough space for 2 responsible vehicles. Frank's SUV sat near the garage, and Evan's car was parked beside Carolyn's. He had gotten there early. Diane opened the door before I rang the bell. She wore cream slacks and a soft blue blouse with a bow at the neck. Diane always looked as though someone might photograph her accepting a donation. Marlene. She pulled me into a hug that smelled of expensive lemons. "I'm so glad you came." So am I. That was not yet true, but I had been raised properly. She took the wooden box from me. "Are these the photographs?" "Oh, wonderful. Caroline has been frantic." "Why?" "The display designer wants everything by Monday. You would think we were asking her to recreate the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel. Depends how many pictures of Buddy you're using." Diane blinked, then smiled uncertainly. "He was such a special dog. I've gathered that." Voices floated from the sitting room. Frank was telling a story with the confidence of a man who had never once questioned whether people wanted the long version. Diane touched my arm. "Before we go in, I want you to know there are no sides here. I didn't realize we were doing teams." "We're not." "Exactly." She lowered her voice. "Weddings create emotion. I tell Caroline it's because every decision feels symbolic when most decisions are just logistical. Like how a groom describes his upbringing." Her fingers tightened slightly on my sleeve. "We'll address that after dinner," she said. "I don't want anyone trying to have a delicate conversation while hungry. Is Frank dangerous on an empty stomach? All men are." That, at least, was something we could agree on. In the sitting room, Paige was arranging printed pages across the coffee table. She was 38, older than Caroline by 3 years, with glossy dark hair and a way of leaning toward you that made everything feel temporarily confidential. "Mrs. H." She rose and hugged me. I hope my email didn't sound clinical. Only the file name. Her eyes widened. "Oh my God, I didn't even think about that." I assumed. "No, I mean it was just so I could track which stakeholder." She stopped. Which person still needed to sign off? Better. "I'm really sorry the language hurt you. Are you sorry it's inaccurate?" She glanced toward the dining room. "I think we should all talk about intention. After we eat. Mom told you. Apparently difficult language lowers Frank's blood sugar." Paige laughed, relieved. Evan stood near the fireplace with Caroline. They were looking at something on her phone, close enough that his shoulder covered part of her face. When he saw me, he straightened. "Hey, Ma, hello?" Caroline kissed my cheek. "Thank you for bringing the pictures. They're in the box." Evan looked at it. "What else is in there?" "Your father's cufflinks." His gaze met mine. "I told you I wasn't wearing them." "You said you couldn't wear them now. I thought perhaps now had passed." Caroline looked between us. "Why wouldn't you wear them? It's nothing." "It's not nothing," I said. "It's jewelry." Evan's expression warned me not to continue, which gave me the strange calm of someone who has already exceeded the speed limit and sees no reason to tap the brakes. Frank entered carrying a tray of drinks. "There she is." He kissed my cheek and pressed a wineglass into my hand. "Our elusive mother of the groom. I've been at the same address for 19 years. Not elusive physically. You know what I mean." I did not. He handed Evan a drink and raised his own. 10 days, 9, Paige corrected. "See? This is why your mother and I raise detail-oriented women. Evan, you'll learn to outsource all accuracy to your wife." "I already do," Evan said. Everyone laughed, including me. Habit is stronger than anger in a room full of people. Dinner was roast chicken. potatoes sliced into exact golden coins, and asparagus that kept sliding off my fork whenever I tried to participate in conversation. Diane asked about my work. Paige explained that the wedding biographies were meant to read like emotional portraits, not resumes. Frank complained about the band's song list. Caroline drank half her wine before touching her food. Evan was attentive to everyone. He complimented Diane's chicken, poured Frank more water, and asked Paige whether her car was still making that noise. When I requested the salt, he passed it before Frank could reach for it. We were not strangers. That was what made the evening exhausting. No one mentioned the biography. When the plates were cleared, I expected Paige to bring out the pages. Instead, Diane served lemon cake, and Frank opened another bottle of wine. The wooden box of photographs sat on a side table behind Caroline. "Before we get into schedules and all that," Frank said, standing with his glass, "I want to say something." Diane smiled up at him. Paige whispered, "Here we go," with enough affection to suggest this happened often. Frank looked at Caroline first. There are moments when you realize your family is changing shape, not losing anything, expanding. When Caroline brought Evan here the first time, I knew she was serious because she let him choose the wine. "I made a mistake," Caroline said. "You brought a Cabernet for fish," Frank told Evan. "I was nervous. And look at you now." Frank rested one hand on Evan's shoulder. "You came into this house a little guarded, a little unsure where you fit. That didn't last long. We watched you open up. We watched you grow into your career, into this family, into the kind of man who can stand beside our daughter and not be intimidated by her." "Much," Evan said. Caroline nudged him. Frank's expression softened. "I've told people this before, and I'll say it at the wedding. You arrived here half-formed, son, and we have had the privilege of watching you become whole at our table." The room answered with small, tender sounds. I looked at Evan. He knew. I saw that he knew because his eyes met mine for less than a second. Then he smiled at Frank. I waited for him to say something. He could have joked. Evan was good at jokes that let people retreat without admitting they had crossed a line. He could have told Frank he had arrived at that table 30 years old, fully house-trained, and already filing his own taxes. Instead, he lifted his glass. "To becoming whole," he said. They drank. I did too, because my hand was already moving and stopping would have drawn more attention than I was prepared to manage. Frank sat down. "Now, Marlene, don't worry. I'm saving the longer version for the reception. I wasn't worried about the length." "Good. Diane claims I lose people after 4 minutes. You lose them after 2, Diane said. We'll split the difference." He reached for the wine, pleased with himself and with us. I realized Frank had no idea he had insulted me. To him, Evan's life before the Delaney's was not bad. It was simply the opening chapter, useful because it made their arrival more meaningful. "Half-formed," I said. Evan put his fork down. Frank looked at me. "I'm sorry?" "You said Evan arrived half-formed. It's just an expression. Is it one you use for everyone who marries into your family?" Diane touched the stem of her glass. "Marlene," Frank was being affectionate. "I'm asking him." Frank's smile stayed in place, but it no longer reached his eyes. I meant he was still finding himself. At 30? People grow at every age. That is true. Evan spoke quietly. "Ma." The warning in that one syllable felt like a hand on my shoulder steering me away from a door. I turned to him. "Did you tell Frank you were half-formed?" "Of course not. Then tell him you weren't." Frank raised both hands. "No defense necessary. If I stepped in something, I apologize." "Apologize for what?" I asked. His hands lowered. Diane's chair made a soft scrape against the floor. "This is exactly why I wanted us to eat first. We're all carrying sensitivities." "I'm carrying roast chicken," Frank said, patting his stomach. No one laughed. He looked genuinely puzzled by that. Paige gathered the pages from the sideboard and brought them to the table. Maybe we should focus on the actual language, since that's something we can solve. She placed a copy in front of each of us. Mine had a yellow sticky note at the top that read, "Marlene's concerns, not corrections." Concerns. Paige sat and folded her hands. The sentence in question is intended to describe emotional influence. It's not meant as a factual claim that Mom and Dad literally parented Evan from childhood. Then why not use words that mean what you intend? I asked. Because a biography should have feeling. Accuracy has feeling. She nodded as if I had contributed something useful at a workshop. Absolutely. So I drafted alternatives. She pointed to 3 options at the bottom of the page. The first changed, raised him to help shape him. The second said the Delaney's showed him the stability of a close family. The third removed the word unsettled, but kept the home he had always longed for. Every option preserved the same story with better manners. "What about the sentence I sent you?" I asked. Paige tilted her head. "It's lovely, but it introduces names and chronology in a way that interrupts the flow." "My name interrupts the flow?" "That's not what she said," Evan cut in. "I'm asking Paige." "It becomes a different kind of paragraph," Paige said. "More genealogical. I'm his mother, not an entry from a family tree." Caroline reached for my proposed wording. "I actually like this part about a second home." "So do I," Diane said quickly. "Second home is beautiful." Frank nodded. No objection here. Paige looked down at the pages. "It's a little conventional." "Paige," Caroline said. "What?" "You asked me to write it, and she asked you to correct it." I offered 3 corrections. "They're not corrections," I said. "They're softer versions of the same thing." Evan pushed his page away. "Can we stop talking as if everyone did this to you on purpose?" I looked at him. "Did you read the sentence before tonight?" "Yes." "Did you approve it?" His eyes flicked toward Caroline. She answered for him. "We approved the draft together. Then somebody did it on purpose." "We approved the whole piece," she said. "We weren't dissecting every word." "That was my mistake," Paige muttered. Diane gave her a look. I rested both hands on the table to keep them still. "Tell me something, Evan. When you read that her family raised you, what did you think it meant?" He leaned back in his chair. "I knew what Paige meant. That isn't what I asked. It meant they welcomed me. They gave me a kind of family experience that was important to me." "What kind? We already did this." "No, you gave me a sentence in my kitchen and left before I could understand it. I told you. You said they were glad you arrived." Diane's face changed. So did Frank's. Caroline stared at Evan. He looked furious with me. Not because I had lied, but because I had repeated him accurately. "I was trying to explain a feeling," he said, "and I'm trying to understand why that feeling requires a verdict on everything before it. It doesn't. Then take the verdict out." Frank cleared his throat. "Maybe I can help." Diane said his name softly, but he continued. "When Evan first came around, he was reserved. He watched us. At dinner, he'd wait to see how everybody else reacted before he joined in. There was a tension there. He was meeting his girlfriend's parents," I said. "He was terrified of you." Frank blinked. "Me? Especially you. You asked what his 5-year plan was before you served the salad." Caroline covered her mouth. Even Evan laughed just once. Frank looked wounded. That was conversational. "You asked for milestones," Caroline said. "I was interested." "You took notes," Evan said. I had a pen in my hand. The table loosened. Diane smiled. Paige made a small adjustment to her papers. For a moment, there was room for us all to admit that Frank's table had not transformed Evan through pure warmth. It had frightened him into excellent posture. I wanted to let the moment settle. Then Frank said, "Well, he learned he belonged here." Evan's smile faded. I asked, "Did he not belong anywhere before?" "Marlene," Diane said, "that's unfair, is it?" "Yes. You are taking every expression of our love for Evan as a subtraction from yours. No, I'm objecting because you keep describing him as empty when he arrived. Nobody said empty. half-formed, unsettled, longing for a home. How many words do we need? Caroline folded her napkin into smaller and smaller squares. 2 versions of a life can be true. Then why are you only printing one? She looked up. The question sat there between us, stripped of tone. Paige tapped her pen once against the table. Diane looked toward Evan. Frank picked up his wine and discovered it was empty. Evan turned to me. Because the biography is about Caroline and me, then don't ask me to approve it. We asked all the parents. Your parents are Leonard and me. The color rose in his face. Dad is dead. The words came out sharper than I think he intended. Nobody moved. I'm aware, I said. He closed his eyes briefly. That's not what I meant. It is what you said. I meant he can't approve anything. No, he can't. The anger went out of me so quickly it left me cold. I stood and walked to the side table. The wooden box was where Diane had left it. I carried it back and set it beside Evan's plate. These are for the display Caroline asked me to help with. I removed the cufflinks and placed the gray box in front of him. Then I passed the photographs to Caroline. She picked up the one from the patio first. That's your dad? Paige asked, leaning closer. Evan nodded. What happened to the patio? It sloped toward the house, I said. It did not, Evan replied automatically. The yard sloped toward the house. The patio followed it. The ground was deceptive. For a second we were back there, teasing Leonard while he crouched with a level and insisted the bubble itself was defective. Caroline smiled at the photograph. You look just like him. I know. The softness in Evan's voice made my chest hurt. She moved to the graduation picture, then the seafood restaurant, then the award dinner. With each one, a piece of Evan's life entered the room that did not require the Delaney's to explain it. Frank held the picture of Leonard's last birthday. Good-looking man. He was, I said. What did he do? Building maintenance for the county. He could fix anything. Dad could temporarily extend the life of anything, Evan said. That's different. I smiled despite myself. Fair. Paige held up the award dinner photograph. This one would work well in the parents section. I looked at her. The parents section that wasn't in the attachment? She lowered the picture. It's part of the reception schedule, not the biographies. What part? Caroline reached for a folder on the empty chair beside her. We were going to cover that next. Evan shifted in his seat. That movement told me there was another sentence waiting for me somewhere. Caroline opened the folder and handed me a page titled Reception Flow. There were columns for time, event, music, lighting, and remarks. I found Frank's welcome, Diane's blessing, Paige's toast, the father-daughter dance. I read the page again. Where is the mother-son dance? Diane looked at Evan. He stared at the cufflink box. We decided not to do one, Caroline said. Who decided? The schedule was getting long. The father-daughter dance is 4 minutes. That's different, Evan said. How? He picked up the gray box and turned it once in his hands. Because Caroline knows her father can get through it. He looked at me then, and his expression was almost pleading. I didn't know if you could. Get through what? I asked. A song? You know what I mean. No, I don't. Evan looked down at the cufflink box. Dad. One word dropped on the table like it explained the rest. I read the reception schedule again. Your father has been dead 13 years. I can stand upright for 4 minutes. That's not what I'm worried about. Are you afraid I'll cry? I don't know. People cry at weddings. You don't just cry. I looked at him. What do I do? He glanced toward Caroline, which answered more than his words would have. What have you told her I do? I asked. Don't turn this into something else. It became something else when you held a meeting about whether I could be trusted with music. We didn't hold a meeting. Paige stared at her plate. Diane said, it was discussed as part of the schedule. With whom? It wasn't about trust, Caroline said. Evan worried that dancing to one of Leonard's favorite songs might overwhelm you. We didn't want you to feel exposed in front of everyone. You were protecting me? Yes. Then why didn't anyone ask me? Caroline's face tightened. Because then you might have felt obligated to say you were fine. You mean the way I say I'm fine when I'm not? I didn't say that. You didn't have to. Apparently, Evan has provided extensive notes. Evan set down the jewelry box. I didn't want my wedding to become a memorial for Dad. The silence that followed was different from the earlier ones. It did not ask to be repaired. I felt my fingers go numb around the schedule. Have I asked for that? I said, no. Have I suggested a slideshow? An empty chair? One of those signs saying he's celebrating from heaven? No, but did I request Leonard's favorite song? No. Then how exactly was I going to turn your wedding into his memorial? I don't know, Mom. Maybe by bringing his cufflinks to a conversation about a wedding biography. You came to collect them. And then you used them to make me feel guilty. I had the clasps fixed. Why do you keep saying that like it changes what happened? Because it is what happened. My voice rose on the last word. Not much, but enough for Diane to lower her eyes. I breathed in and made myself set the schedule down. Evan had always hated scenes, not conflict exactly. He could argue all night in private, but if another person looked uncomfortable, he became furious at whoever had made the discomfort visible. I had accommodated that for years. When he canceled dinner at the last minute, I told our guests work had kept him. When he forgot Leonard's memorial service at church, I said there had been confusion over the date. When he arrived 2 hours late to my 60th birthday, I cut the cake again so he could watch. The more gracefully I covered for him, the more certain he became that nothing underneath required repair. Frank leaned forward. Can I say something? No. 4 of us answered. He sat back. Diane folded her hands on the table. Marlene, the dance can be added. I truly don't care if the reception runs 4 minutes longer. That's not the point, Evan said. I know, I told him. He looked tired now, not guilty. Tired as though my mothering had become a customer service problem escalated beyond his authority. Caroline moved her wine glass away from the edge of the table. What do you want? I wanted to be asked. I'm asking now. No. You're offering because I found out. What difference does that make if we add it? All the difference. She sat back, stung. Then nothing we do can fix it. I didn't say that. You don't want the dance added. You don't want it left out. Paige gave you 3 revisions, and you rejected all of them. My dad apologized, and you asked him to define his apology. Because none of those things acknowledged what happened. What happened is your feelings got hurt. I watched her press her lips together after she said it. She knew it sounded smaller than the truth, but she did not take it back. Paige quietly collected the biography pages. Maybe we should pause. We've paused for 9 months, I said. Everyone looked at me. I had not planned those words. Once they were in the room, I had to decide whether to stand behind them. Diane's voice became careful. What does that mean? It means every time something bothers me, I'm told it's too small, too late, already ordered, difficult for the florist, awkward for the seating chart, or not worth upsetting Caroline. I've never said you can't upset me, Caroline said. No, Evan says it for you. His chair scraped back. I am trying to get us to one day without a family problem. By removing one side of the family, there it is. What? The martyr thing. Diane whispered his name, but Evan had finally stopped watching the room. He was looking only at me. You agree to things, he said. You say they're fine. Then you save them. You stack them up until you can prove everybody has been mistreating you. I thought of the green dress returned to the store, the 9 names removed from the guest list, the welcome bags lined up across my dining room table. Maybe I expected you to notice. How? You don't tell me. I shouldn't have to explain why raised by her family might bother your mother. I'm not talking about that sentence. I am. That is why I came. No, you came to put every wedding decision on trial. I almost answered, but something in his face stopped me. Beneath the anger there was fear. Not fear of losing me. Fear that I might name a pattern he depended on. Caroline touched his wrist. He moved his hand away, not cruelly, but quickly. "What else is on this schedule?" I asked. "Marlene," Diane said, "perhaps tonight isn't the night. It is the only night anyone has given me." I took the page back. Below the dances came toasts, dinner service, cake cutting, and an item labeled Parent Acknowledgements. Frank and Diane each had a small block of text beside their names. Paige would introduce them before Evan spoke. Beside mine, the note read, "Evan thanks Marlene for her sacrifices and for doing the best she could after Leonard's passing. Transition into chosen family remarks." I read it twice. What are chosen family remarks? Nobody answered. I turned the page toward Evan and tapped the line. "What does this mean?" He closed his eyes. Caroline said, "It's just a production note. What are you planning to say?" "I haven't written it yet," Evan said. "Apparently someone has. That's a placeholder." "For what?" "For thanking you. For doing the best I could. That's not an insult. It's what you say about a waitress who spills soup but cleans it up quickly." Frank rubbed his mouth to hide something that might have been a smile. Diane saw him and kicked him under the table. Evan took the schedule from me. Paige wrote this. Based on what? General conversations. Paige looked up. "You said you wanted to acknowledge that your mom carried everything after your dad died, even when it was hard. That isn't what this says," I told her. "I can revise the note. It's not the note." Paige put her pen down. "Then what is it?" I looked around the table. They seemed honestly confused. All 5 of them were waiting for me to identify the defective line so they could replace it and continue with dessert. "The biography says I didn't give him stability," I said. "The toast says he arrived here half-formed. The dance was cut because I might embarrass him with grief. Now he's going to thank me for doing the best I could before he praises the family that finished the job." "That is not the intention," Diane said. "It is the story." Caroline shook her head. "You're connecting things that weren't created together. They don't have to be created together to say the same thing." Evan pushed away from the table and walked toward the windows. Outside, the backyard lights illuminated a stone patio wide enough to host my entire guest list, including the people he had asked me to remove. He stood with his back to us. "This is exactly what I was afraid of." "What were you afraid of?" I asked. "That nothing would be enough for you." I waited for him to turn around. When he did, his face had the closed, calm expression he used during difficult business calls. "The photos are an issue too," he said. Caroline's head snapped toward him. "Evan." "What photos?" "The family portraits after the ceremony." Diane reached for the schedule as if there might be another answer hidden inside it. "The photographer has a list. What issue?" "It's not an issue," Caroline said. "There are just a lot of combinations, and we have limited time before cocktail hour." Evan came back to the table. "They're doing Caroline with her parents, Caroline with Paige, me with you, then all of us together. That sounds normal. There won't be a separate one with Dad's photograph." I stared at him. "I didn't ask for one." "Diane thought you might." Diane looked horrified. "I asked whether Marlene would want Leonard represented. That was all." "And I said no," Evan replied. "You said more than no." Caroline's voice had changed. She was no longer managing me. She was watching him. He looked at her. "What is that supposed to mean?" "You called it complicated. The combinations are complicated. You said your side was complicated. My father is dead. My mother has feelings about everything involving him, and we're trying to take pictures in 25 minutes. That is complicated." The word lodged under my ribs. Frank broke the silence. "For what it's worth, every family is complicated." "No," I said. "Some families are the family. Other families are combinations." Evan flinched. It was small, but I saw it. I gathered the photographs from the table. Caroline still held the picture of Leonard and Evan beside the patio. "Marlene," she said, "leave these. I want them in the display." I held out my hand. She looked down at the photograph and then passed it to me. I placed the stack inside the wooden box. When I reached for the cufflinks, Evan put his hand over the gray case. "I'll keep these," he said. I almost told him no. Then I remembered they had always been meant for him. "All right." He moved his hand and I closed the wooden box. Diane rose. "Please don't leave like this. I don't know another way to leave. We haven't resolved the biography." "No, we can use your sentence," Caroline said quickly. Paige turned toward her. "Caroline, use it." I looked at Evan. He did not agree. He did not object. He simply stood there holding his father's cufflinks, waiting for someone else to end the evening. "Is that what you want?" I asked him. "I want everyone to stop making every word mean more than it means." There was my answer. I picked up my purse. Evan followed me through the hall. He waited until the dining room doorway was behind us before speaking. "Are you really going to walk out? I brought my own car. That isn't what I asked." At the front door, I turned to him. Through the dining room, I could hear Diane telling Frank not to touch the cake because nobody wanted cake now. It was such an ordinary marital sentence that I nearly cried. "I need you to tell me what my place is at this wedding," I said. "You're my mother. That is who I am." I asked what my place is. He looked toward the room where Caroline sat with her family. Then he said, "I don't know what you want me to say." For once, I believed him. "I'm not asking you to guess," I said. "I'm asking you to decide." His hand tightened around the gray box. Behind him, Caroline appeared at the end of the hall. She had taken off her shoes and was carrying them by the straps. Without the polished height of them, she looked tired and smaller than she had at the table. "Can we all sleep on this?" she asked. Evan did not turn around. "That's what I'm trying to get her to do." "I didn't hear you trying," I said. Caroline came closer. "Nobody should decide anything tonight." I looked at her, then at my son. "Some things were already decided. We can change them. Do you want to?" "Yes," she said. Evan stared at the door. Caroline waited for him. When he finally looked at her, something passed between them that I could not translate. It was the first moment I understood that the disagreement had entered their relationship too. I took no satisfaction from that. I had wanted an ally, perhaps, but not damage. "I need to go," I said. Evan stepped aside. Caroline opened the door for me. "Text me when you get home." "I will." The night air had turned cool. I crossed the circular driveway with the wooden box held against my stomach and felt all three of them watching me. Caroline from the doorway, Evan behind her, Diane through the front window. My car started on the second try. It had been doing that for 2 months. Leonard would have diagnosed it by sound, then spent a weekend proving the diagnosis wrong before taking it to a mechanic on Monday. I made it to the end of the street before the first tear reached my chin. That was all. One tear, followed by anger that it had escaped without permission. I drove with the radio off. At a red light, I looked at the photographs on the passenger seat and thought of Evan's accusation that I turned everything into a memorial. The box held 8 pictures. 8, out of a life spanning 34 years. I had chosen them because Caroline asked. Yet sitting there in the dark, I began questioning whether 3 photographs of Leonard had been too many. That was the power of being called emotional. It could make a woman distrust the evidence in her own hands. When I got home, Mrs. Alvarez's porch light flashed twice. She did that if she saw my car arrive after dark. I flashed mine back. My champagne dress still hung in the front window. I took it down and laid it across the bed. The color was even worse at night. Under the lamp, it shifted from upholstered chair to mushroom soup. I texted Caroline that I was home. She replied immediately, "Thank you." "I'm sorry tonight went that way." I typed, "So am I." Before I sent it, another message appeared. "I love Evan. I also love you. I need a little room to think about what's fair." I deleted my first response. "Take the room," I wrote. "The wedding is yours. His history isn't." The dots appeared, disappeared, then returned. understood. It did not feel like understanding. It felt like a door closed gently enough that no one could accuse it of slamming. I left the dress on the bed and carried the wooden box into the living room. The welcome bags covered my dining table in neat rows, small navy sacks with the couple's initials stamped in gold. Each one contained bottled water, mints, pain reliever, a local map, 2 wrapped cookies, and a card listing the weekend schedule. Diane had ordered the contents. I had assembled 86 bags because I had a dining table, and according to Diane, the patience for details. The extra cards were stacked beside the ribbon. "Welcome to Evan and Caroline's story," they said. I turned one face down. The next morning, I woke wearing the blouse I had worn to dinner. One earring was still in my ear. The other had caught in the bedspread. My phone showed a missed call from Evan at 1:14 a.m. He had left no message. I made coffee and waited until 9 before calling him. He answered on the first ring. "Hey, did I wake you?" "No." His voice said yes. "I saw that you called. I wanted to make sure you got home." I texted Caroline. "I know." I stood at the kitchen window. Mrs. Alvarez was watering a plant that had been dead since April. "Are you still at their house?" I asked. "No, we left around 11. "We?" "Caroline and me. Are you all right?" He gave a short laugh. "Are you asking about my relationship?" "I'm asking about you." "We're fine." "All right." Neither of us spoke. I could hear water running on his end, then the clink of a glass against the sink. "Caroline thinks we should use your wording," he said. "What do you think?" "I think we should cut the whole paragraph about my childhood. That would solve the printing problem. It would remove the sentence you object to. That isn't the same thing. I knew you'd say that." "Then why offer it? Because I'm trying to find something you will accept." "You could accept the truth." "Whose truth?" "Don't do that." "Do what?" "Turn basic facts into philosophy because you don't like them." He sighed. "I was raised by you and Dad." "Fine, that's the fact. The truth is, I spent years feeling like I had to manage your emotions." I closed my eyes. The coffee machine gave one final wet sputter behind me. "You didn't have to," I said. "I know you believe that. I told you not to. You told me with words. Then you'd call and say the house was too quiet, or you'd ask if I remembered what day it was, because it was the anniversary of your father's death." "Exactly. You wanted me not to mention it? I wanted to be allowed to forget for half a day without feeling like a terrible son." I sat at the table. There were memories I could defend and memories I could not. One year, I had called him 3 times before noon because he had not contacted me on Leonard's birthday. The third call had gone to voicemail. I left a message saying, "I guess people move on at different speeds." I regretted it before I hung up. "I'm sorry for the times I put that on you," I said. Evan became quiet. "I mean it," I continued. "I was lonely, and sometimes I made that your responsibility." His breath changed. I knew he had expected denial. "Thank you," he said. "But that does not mean your childhood was unsettled. It does not mean the Delaney's raised you, and it does not give you the right to tell 212 people that they made you into a man after I did the best I could." The softness disappeared from his voice. "There's always a but." Yes, adults use that word when 2 things are true, or when they want an apology without giving up the argument. What would giving up look like to you? Letting it go. The biography? All of it. The dance, the photos, the schedule notes. Let the weekend be about Caroline and me. That is what I want. It doesn't feel like it. Then listen carefully. I took a sheet of paper from the stack beside the welcome bags. On the blank side, I wrote while I spoke, partly so I would not add anything out of anger. I do not need a mother-son dance. I will not ask for one. I do not need a photograph with your father's picture. I never asked for that either. I don't need a speech thanking me for sacrifices. Remove the sentence that says the Delaney's raised you. Remove the line about my doing the best I could. Somewhere in the program, or in your remarks, acknowledge plainly that Leonard and I are your parents and that we raised you. Not heroes, not tragic figures. Your parents." He said nothing. "I will attend," I continued. "I will wear the mushroom-colored dress. I will sit wherever you put me. I will be polite to every person in that house, but I will not approve a false biography, supply photographs to support it, or stand in a room while you teach people that somebody else gave you the family you never had." "Mushroom-colored? That's what the dress looks like." "Mom picked the color," he said. "Of course she did." There was a pause. "You just called Diane Mom. I call her that sometimes." "I heard you." "Oh, come on." "No, it's fine. It clearly isn't. It's not the title. It's what you do while you're saying it." "What do I do?" "You make room for her." He exhaled hard. "This is impossible." "No, it's uncomfortable. We are 8 days out. The printer has a delete key. It's not just the printer, it's Caroline, it's her parents." Paige feels humiliated. Paige wrote something inaccurate. She wrote what I told her. The sentence came out before he could stop it. I gripped the pen. "What did you tell her?" "That the Delaney's helped raise me emotionally." "At 30. "Yes, Ma, at 30. You don't stop developing because you can rent a car." "What else did you tell her?" "I don't remember every note I sent. Did you describe your childhood as unsettled?" Silence. "Evan, I said there was a lot of grief in our house. After your father died, there was grief before that, too. Dad wasn't exactly a light person. I almost laughed. Leonard, who sang commercial jingles while unclogging toilets. Leonard, who once wore a plastic crown through an entire anniversary dinner because the restaurant had mistaken us for another couple and included it with the cake. He worried," Evan said, "about money, about things breaking, about me making mistakes. I always felt the temperature in our house." "So did I. It was usually because you left a window open. Can you be serious? I'm trying not to say something cruel." "Well, congratulations." I put the pen down. On the paper, I had written 3 lines. No false sentence, no qualified gratitude. My son chooses. "I'm not asking you to say our family was perfect," I said. "I'm asking you not to erase it so theirs looks like a rescue. And I'm telling you that this wedding cannot become an argument about how you raised me. You made it that when you wrote the biography. I didn't write it. You supplied the story." He went quiet again. Through the window, Mrs. Alvarez set down the watering can and pulled the dead plant from its pot. It came free in one dry clump. "I can't approve it for you," I said, "and I can't spend the next 8 days negotiating whether every sentence honors you enough. Then don't negotiate. Decide. I have decided. The wedding is happening as planned. With the biography, we'll remove the word raised and replace it with what? I don't know yet. The same story with a quieter insult? You see? Nothing is enough. I told you exactly what is enough." "No, you gave me conditions for your support. I gave you conditions for my presence." He did not answer immediately. When he did, his voice was low and tired. "If you can't support the wedding as it is, maybe you shouldn't come." I looked at the champagne dress on my bed through the open bedroom door. Then I looked at 86 welcome bags arranged beneath a card inviting strangers into my son's story. "All right," I said. "Maybe I shouldn't." Neither of us spoke. I could hear him breathing, waiting for me to soften the words for him. I had done that all his life. Even when he was grown, I found myself adding little cushions beneath anything that might land hard. "I love you, but..." "I'm disappointed, but..." "You hurt me, but I know you didn't mean to." This time I let the sentence remain on the floor between us. "Okay," he said finally. Not wait. Not I don't want that. Just okay. The call ended before I knew which of us had pressed the button. I stayed at the table with the pen in my hand. The 3 lines I had written looked small enough to fit on a grocery list. No false sentence, no qualified gratitude. My son chooses. I crossed out the last one he already had. At 10:30, I called Diane. She answered brightly enough that I knew Caroline had warned her. Marlene. Good morning. Good morning. I have the welcome bags here. When would you like to collect them? Oh. A pause. There's no rush. There are 86 bags taking up my dining room. Yes, of course. I can have Frank come this afternoon. They're finished except for the room key envelopes. Those are stacked separately. You finished them? I said I would. Another pause. Marlene, I don't want to conduct this conversation through welcome bags. I'm not sure what conversation you want. The one about next Sunday. Evan and I had it. I heard. I looked toward the champagne dress. Then you know. I know he said something out of frustration. So did I. Exactly. People say things in a heated moment. We weren't heated. That may be worse. A laugh escaped me, and to my surprise, she laughed too. Then her voice softened. Please don't do something you cannot undo. I'm not the one printing it. The biography can be revised. Will it be? Paige is working on language. Paige has worked very hard to avoid naming me. That isn't fair. No, it isn't. Diane sighed. I wish you would stop turning my attempts at peace into openings for another blow. I'm sorry. She went quiet, perhaps because the apology arrived without resistance. I mean it, I said. You did not write Evan's notes. You did not remove the dance. You asked about Leonard's picture because you were trying to be considerate. I was. I know. And I did suggest the champagne dress. Yes, I can hear that you're still holding that. I look like soup, Diane. She laughed again, unwillingly. It looked silver, online. It lies. For a few seconds, we sounded like two women planning a wedding together. Then the silence reminded us that we were not. I love him, she said. I know you do. He calls me Mom because he wants to. I never asked. I know that too. I don't want you to think I am trying to replace you. I don't. Then what is this? This is Evan trying to become the version of himself he likes best in your house. Her breath caught slightly. That isn't your fault, I continued, but I won't certify it. Attending a wedding is not certification. It is when he asked me to approve the words and told me to stay home if I wouldn't. He did not tell you to stay home. He told me maybe I shouldn't come. That sounds like Evan leaving himself somewhere to hide. It was the most honest thing anyone in that family had said to me. Yes, I said, it does. Then don't hide there with him. Before I could answer, a vehicle slowed outside. Mrs. Alvarez lifted 2 fingers from her porch. It was only the mail carrier. I'll have Frank get the bags at 2, Diane said. Fine. And Marlene? Yes? You are still included in everything unless you decide otherwise. I looked at the face-down welcome card. That is exactly the problem, I said. Frank arrived at 2:15 with the back of his SUV cleared. He wore golf shorts and an expression of grave purpose, like a man collecting humanitarian supplies. That's wise. I'm not good at it, I know. He nodded. Diane says honesty is not always helpful. Diane is right. We carried the bags out 6 at a time. Frank counted every load allowed and lost track after 36. On the 4th trip, he noticed the dress draped over the back of my sofa. That the wedding dress? It's my dress for the wedding. He squinted at it. Interesting color. Thank you for your courage. He picked up another row of bags. When the table was clear, the room looked larger and less useful. A few gold threads from the ribbons clung to the wood. Frank stood beside the door holding the final box. For what it's worth, he said. I didn't mean half-formed the way you heard it. How did you mean it? He considered that longer than he had at dinner. I suppose I meant he relaxed here. That I believe. He wanted us to like him very badly. I know. I liked him before he started trying. Something in Frank's face made me look at him more carefully. Have you told him that? I assumed he knew. People get into trouble assuming love has made itself clear. He shifted the box against his hip. That aimed at me or you? Both, probably. He smiled, then sobered. He has talked about your house being hard after Leonard died, but he never talked as if you were a bad mother. I'm glad. He talks like a man who needs the hard part to explain why the good part feels so good. I leaned against the doorframe. Frank glanced toward his SUV. I've done that myself. With what? My father. Spent years telling Diane's family he was impossible because her father was easy. Truth was, my father was difficult, and I loved him. Both made me feel disloyal. I had not expected confession from Frank. Advice, yes. A story involving a boat, certainly. Not that. Did you fix it? He died before I got mature enough to be embarrassed. I'm sorry. So am I. He looked down at the box. I'm still not mediating. Of course not. He carried the last welcome bags to his car. Before closing the hatch, he called, "The chicken really was good, wasn't it? It was excellent," I told her. "I'm sure you did." At work on Monday, Renee found me reorganizing the supply closet. "You have to stop taking your problems out on inventory," she said. "The tape applicators were mixed with the wraps. They're friends." I handed her a box. "Put that on the top shelf." She did, then climbed down from the small ladder. "Have you heard from Evan? He sends wedding group messages." That wasn't my question. "No." "Caroline?" "No." Renee studied me. "You going?" "I don't know." "That sounds like yes, wearing sunglasses." I sat on an unopened carton. I told him what I needed. He told me maybe I shouldn't come. And you said? Maybe I shouldn't. Very efficient family. I'm proud of us. She sat on the carton beside me. "Do you want him to call and ask you?" "Yes." "Would you go if he did?" "I don't know." "That sounds like yes, wearing a hat. I want him to change the biography. That isn't what I asked." I looked at the shelves opposite us. Labels faced outward in orderly rows. If he asked me to come and change nothing, I'd spend the whole day pretending not to see it, I said. He knows I would. That's why he asks for things this way. Renee nodded. He doesn't say, "I'm choosing them." He says, "Don't make it difficult." Then if I leave, I left. If I stay, I agreed. What if you go and don't pretend? Stand up during the reception and correct the program? I'd pay money. I'm not ruining his wedding. Then don't go. The bluntness hurt enough that I knew she was right. On Wednesday, the final wedding materials appeared in the group chat. Paige wrote, "Hot off the press. So grateful to everyone who helped bring Evan and Caroline's love story to life." The file opened to the same photographs and polished headings. The sentence now read, "After an unsettled chapter, marked by the early loss of his father, Evan found with the Delaney's the steady family connection he had long missed, helping shape him into the man Caroline fell in love with. They had removed raised. They had kept everything it meant. My name appeared near the end beneath a heading called, 'With Gratitude to Our Families.' Marlene Hayes, mother of the groom." That was all. No Leonard. The parent acknowledgments were not included. Neither were the photo lists or dances. Guests would see the biography. The rest would happen quickly enough to deny later. I closed the file. Within an hour, my cousin Denise called from Atlanta. "I got the program," she said. "That paragraph reads funny." "Does it?" "It reads like you lived in a bus station." Apparently, I was unsettled. "What does Evan say?" "That I make words mean too much." Denise became quiet. "Are you going Sunday?" "No." The word came out before I had decided to say it. "Oh," she said. I told him what would have to change. He didn't change it. "Do you want me to skip it?" "No." "Absolutely not. Marlene, this is between me and Evan. You go. Eat everything. Tell me if the mushroom soup dress would have looked as bad as I suspect. I can tell you now. Go to the wedding, Denise," she promised reluctantly. By Friday, 3 more relatives had called. Somebody had told them I was considering staying home because my dance had been cut. That version made me sound wounded over choreography, which was probably why it traveled so well. I corrected each person and asked each one to attend. I would not build an empty section on my side of the aisle and call it a boundary. Evan had asked me to carry the cost, not everybody who loved us. Caroline came Saturday afternoon. She stood on my porch holding the garment bag containing my green dress, the one I had returned months earlier. "I found it," she said. I stared at the plastic. "Where?" "The shop still had your size." "Why?" "Because I told them to hold it." She stepped inside without waiting to be invited. I touched the garment bag. "You hated this dress. My mother hated it with the flowers. And you? I thought you looked beautiful." The words should have pleased me. Instead, they made me tired. "Why are you here, Caroline?" She placed the dress over the back of the sofa. "To ask you to come tomorrow." "Did Evan send you?" "No." "Does he know?" "Yes." "What did he say?" "He said it was my choice." There it was again. A doorway left open so someone else would be responsible for walking through. Did he change the biography? "You saw it." "Then no." Caroline's eyes shone, though her voice remained steady. "If you stay home, that will be the thing everyone remembers." "No," I said. "It will be the thing I remember. And Evan, he'll remember what he asked me to approve." She looked at the green dress between us. "He is wearing Leonard's cufflinks," she said. I had not known how much that would matter until it did. Caroline saw it on my face. For a second, neither of us was careful. Then I asked, "Does he still want me there?" Her answer took too long. "He wants tomorrow to be peaceful." I nodded. Caroline closed her eyes. "That isn't the same thing," she said. "No, honey, it isn't." Caroline picked at the edge of the garment bag. "I don't know what to do with that," she said. "Neither do I. He loves you." "I know. Do you?" "Yes. That's what makes this hurt." She looked toward the dining table where faint lines in the dust showed where the welcome bags had sat. "He thinks you're forcing him to choose between you and my family. I'm asking him not to lie about who raised him. He doesn't think it's a lie. I understand that now." Caroline flinched as if I had said something cruel about him. I sat on the sofa and moved the green dress aside. "Come sit down." She did, leaving a cushion between us. For several seconds, we listened to Mrs. Alvarez drag a metal watering can across her porch. The sound was terrible. She owned 3 plastic ones and refused to use them because the metal can had belonged to her mother. "What was it like?" Caroline asked. "What?" "After Leonard died." I folded my hands. "It was quiet," I said. "And then it was loud in strange places. The refrigerator sounded like an airplane. The pipes knocked. Leonard used to make noise all day, humming or talking to the television. Without him, every appliance acted guilty." "That isn't what I meant." "I know." I looked at her profile. She had no makeup on and there were small shadows beneath her eyes. "I was not at my best," I said. "I called Evan too much. I expected him to remember dates that mattered to me. Sometimes I made him feel responsible for keeping me from falling apart. So what he told me was true. Some of it. He said he could feel your mood before you spoke. He probably could. He said home felt heavy. It did." Caroline turned toward me. "Then why is the biography false?" "Because his childhood did not begin when Leonard died, and his life with me did not end. Because grief in a house is not the same as never having a stable home. Because your parents met a successful 30-year-old man who had already survived his worst years, and now the story says they built him." She looked down at her engagement ring and rotated it around her finger. "My family isn't as perfect as he thinks," she said. "I doubt any family is. My mother manages everyone. Paige rewrites things until she can live with them. My dad makes a speech whenever he doesn't know how to have a conversation. We love each other, but it can be exhausting. Why doesn't the biography say that? It's a wedding biography." "Exactly." She gave me a tired smile. I wanted to take her hand. I did not know whether that would be comfort or pressure, so I kept mine folded. "I think Evan likes my family because everybody has a role," she said. "My mother gives people one before they can ask. He knows what to do at our house. What is his role? The son my dad never had. And mine?" Caroline's eyes filled. "That's what I keep asking him," I said. She wiped beneath one eye with the side of her finger. "If you don't come, People are going to ask me where you are. You can say I chose not to attend. That makes it sound like I couldn't get my husband's mother to his wedding. I'm sorry it puts you in that position. Are you? Yes. But you're still doing it. Yes. She stood. Anger helped dry her face faster than the tissue I offered. I thought you loved me too. I do. It doesn't feel like it. There are accusations that arrive wearing the voice of someone else. I heard Evan in her, but I also heard something that belonged to Caroline alone. I'm not staying home to punish you, I said. It will punish me anyway. I know. She stared at me. I had disappointed her by not denying the cost. If I had said she would be fine, she could have called me selfish. If I had offered to remove the pain without changing my decision, I would have been promising magic. She picked up her purse. Keep the dress, she said. I won't wear it. I know. Keep it anyway. At the door, she stopped. Evan said you would come, she told me. He said you always do this and then you come. What does this mean? Get upset. Make him think he's lost you. Then show up. I looked at her. Did you believe him? Until today. She left before I could ask what had changed. The green dress stayed on my sofa all night. I woke before 5 and reached for the champagne one as if the day had begun with an emergency. It was still hanging from the bedroom door, steamed, altered, and ready. My body knew the schedule. Hair appointment at 8, makeup at 10, photographs at 2, ceremony at 4:30. I sat on the edge of the bed with the dress across my lap. If I hurried, I could still go. That thought returned every few minutes, always disguised as practicality. The programs were printed, so my absence would not change the words. People would notice an empty place. Caroline would have to answer questions. Evan might spend his wedding day angry instead of happy. I could go, smile, sit, and deal with everything later. I had been dealing with everything later for 9 months. At 6, I carried the dress into the closet and hung it behind Leonard's old work jacket. Then I moved it because the fabrics touched, which felt more symbolic than I was willing to tolerate before coffee. My phone showed 14 messages. The wedding group was awake. Paige had sent a photograph of garment bags lined across a hotel suite. Diane wanted confirmation that the florist had received the revised table numbers. Brooks had an opinion about rain probabilities. A private message from Denise read, "I'm not calling unless you want me to. I love you." I replied, "Go enjoy the day. Send me one picture of Evan before the ceremony. Nothing else until tomorrow." She sent a heart. At 7:15, Renee knocked once and let herself in. She wore sweatpants and carried 2 grocery bags. "What are you doing here?" I asked. "You didn't think I was letting you spend today alone." "I did, actually. That's because grief has damaged your judgment. This is not grief. What is it?" I looked toward the closet. "Fine," she said. "Whatever it is, I brought eggs." She unpacked butter, orange juice, bread, and a bottle of sparkling wine. "It's 7 in the morning. The wine is for later. I have standards. You brought the kind of orange juice you accused of being paste. You like it." I took the carton from her. "This is the expensive kind. Today seemed like a pulp emergency." The refrigerator was already crowded. I had bought enough food to feed Denise, her husband, and 4 family friends who had planned to meet at my house before the wedding. Once I decided not to attend, I asked them to gather at the hotel instead. I did not want my living room to become a resistance headquarters. There was a glazed ham, potato salad, fruit, rolls, 2 pies, and a tray of deviled eggs I had made before accepting that no one was coming. Renee looked inside. "Why did you let me bring food? I didn't know you were coming. You have provisions for a siege. I was hosting people. We can host ourselves." She made omelets while I set the table. Neither of us mentioned what time my hair appointment would have been. When 8 o'clock arrived, she asked whether I wanted cheese, and I said no, then changed my mind. At 10, my salon called. "Mrs. Hayes, are you on your way?" I canceled on Wednesday. There was whispering on the other end. "Oh," the receptionist said. I see it now. I could tell she did not see it. "I'm sorry," I said. I hope the stylist got the message. She did. We just wanted to check. After I hung up, Renee slid the sparkling wine into the refrigerator. Not yet, she said. I wasn't asking. You were looking. At noon, I went into the bedroom and opened the closet. Renee did not follow me. I touched the sleeve of the champagne dress, then the green dress Caroline had brought. I imagined arriving late enough to avoid photographs, but early enough for the ceremony. I could sit in the last row. I could remove myself before the reception. I could make the day easier for everyone. My phone rang in the living room. For one irrational second, I was certain it was Evan. It was Diane. I watched the screen until the call stopped. No message followed. At 1:30, Denise sent the photograph I had requested. Evan stood near a hotel window in his tuxedo, looking down as he adjusted Leonard's cufflinks. The photographer had caught him concentrating, his mouth slightly open. His hands looked like his father's. Behind him, Frank held the gray jewelry box. I enlarged the picture until the silver squares blurred. Renee stood at the living room doorway but said nothing. He wore them, I said. I see. He said he couldn't. Maybe now past. I looked at her. She remembered. That nearly undid me. At 4:15, I turned off my phone. I tried to read. I tried to clean the guest bathroom. I folded 2 towels, unfolded them, and put them back in the cabinet. At 4:30, I sat at the kitchen table and pictured the ceremony beginning. I knew the venue from the walkthrough: stone terrace, rows of white chairs, an aisle lined with low flowers. Frank would walk Caroline from the glass doors to the arbor. Evan would be waiting in Leonard's cufflinks, one hand probably in his pocket until Paige signaled him to take it out. I wondered whether he looked for me. I hoped he did. I hoped he did not. Those 2 wishes lived together without canceling each other. Renee sat across from me. You don't have to be brave in front of me. I'm not being brave. What are you being? Still. At 5:20, she opened the sparkling wine. We drank 1 glass each. There was no toast. At 6, we sliced the ham and ate the meal I had prepared for people who had gone somewhere else. Renee praised the potato salad too aggressively. I told her it had too much mustard. We argued about that for several minutes because it was a disagreement with no future. At 7:15, I turned my phone back on. Photographs and videos poured into the wedding chat. Caroline under the arbor, Evan kissing her, Diane crying into Frank's shoulder, Paige holding both their bouquets while trying to direct someone outside the frame. The ceremony had been beautiful. The reception room glowed with candles. The pearl napkins had, as promised, more dimension. One photograph showed the family table. Diane sat beside Evan. Frank was on his other side. Paige leaned across Caroline, laughing. The chair where I would have sat was not empty. Brooks occupied it. My absence had been handled logistically. I closed the chat. At 9, during the hour listed for parent acknowledgments, a message appeared from Evan. We're married. I stared at the 2 words until the screen dimmed. Then I wrote, I know. I hope you're both happy. He did not reply. At 11:48, he placed a heart beneath my message. That was all my son gave me from his wedding day, and for a long time, it was all I gave him back. The next morning, there were 127 new messages in the wedding chat. I muted it. Renee slept on my sofa with 1 foot on the floor and a decorative pillow over her face. I stepped around her, made coffee, and began putting food into containers. The ham alone required 3. I gave 1 to Mrs. Alvarez, who accepted it without asking how I was, and then stood in my kitchen for 20 minutes not asking. At 9, Denise called. I waited, she said. Thank you. Do you want details? No. Good, because I don't know how to give them without making editorial comments. I sat at the table. Was he happy? Yes. Was Caroline? Yes. Then that's enough. It isn't. It has to be. Denise inhaled slowly. Frank gave the toast. I assumed he would. He changed half-formed to guarded. That surprised me. He said Evan came to them guarded and learned to let himself be loved. I looked at the faint gold thread still caught in the edge of my dining table. That's better, I said. He also said they raised him in the ways that matter after childhood. Of course he did. I nearly threw a roll. I'm glad you didn't. It was a very small roll. Those are the dangerous ones. She laughed, then stopped. Evan didn't say anything about you. I had not asked. He thanked the Delaney's, she continued. He thanked Paige for the biography. He mentioned Leonard's cufflinks. Then he said some people couldn't be there. Some people. I'm sorry. So am I. He looked toward your table. Which table was mine? Denise became quiet. That answer stayed with me longer than anything else she said. The official photographs appeared 4 days later. I knew because the wedding group woke up again with compliments and requests for high-resolution copies. I did not open the album until midnight, when curiosity had worn down dignity. There were 814 photographs. I viewed every one. Caroline was radiant. That word had been abused by wedding magazines, but it belonged to her. She looked relieved, delighted, and surprised by her own delight. In one photograph, she was laughing so hard her forehead pressed against Evan's chest. Evan looked handsome and slightly frightened during the ceremony. He wore Leonard's cufflinks. In the close photograph of his hands, the repaired clasp was visible. The family portraits followed. Caroline with Diane and Frank. Caroline with Paige. Evan with Diane and Frank. Evan with Paige. The 4 Delaney's with Evan at the center. Then a larger group labeled, "The Families Come Together." My relatives stood at the edges. Denise was half hidden behind Frank's shoulder. My cousin Marcus, not named for my son, though everyone always assumed he was, had been placed in the back row beside one of Brooks's golf friends. The photograph was technically inclusive. Every face from my side had been arranged around the Delaney's like punctuation. There was no empty space where I belonged. Good photographers did not preserve mistakes. Near the end of the album, I found a picture of the framed biographies. Evans was fully visible, the steady family connection he had long missed. I enlarged it, though I already knew every word. Under the photograph, someone had commented, "Such a beautiful tribute to the family who made him who he is." Diane had liked the comment. I closed the album and went to bed. Sunday arrived without a call from Evan. At 10:45, the time he usually phoned, I found myself carrying my phone from room to room. I took it into the laundry room, set it beside the sink while I cleaned the bathroom, and placed it on the porch while I swept leaves that did not need sweeping. At noon, he sent a photograph from the airport. 2 coffee cups, Caroline's hand, his wedding ring. Leaving for paradise. "Have a good trip," I replied. He placed a heart beneath that, too. The next Sunday, he was still away. The Sunday after that, he was home. He did not call. I considered calling him. I made a list of reasons not to, then became disgusted with myself for requiring paperwork to avoid my own son. At 6 that evening, I dialed. It rang 5 times. "Hey, Ma." Noise surrounded him. Voices, silverware, somebody laughing. "Is this a bad time?" "We're at Mom and Dad's." There was no pause before Mom. "All right. I was just checking in. We're good. How are you?" "Good. That's good." A woman called his name in the background. Diane, I thought, though it might have been Paige. "I should go," he said. "Of course. We'll talk soon." All right. He ended the call before either of us said, "I love you." For the next month soon became an assortment of small digital signs. He sent a picture of a crooked shelf with the message, "Dad would hate this." I replied, "Your father installed worse." He forwarded an article about the warehouse company expanding into another state. I told him our location was not affected. He reacted to a picture of Mrs. Alvarez holding a pumpkin large enough to require assistance. We communicated like people who had once worked together. Caroline called twice. The first time, she thanked me again for the cufflinks. "He kept touching them before the ceremony," she said. "I think it made him feel like Leonard was there." "I'm glad." "I wish you had been." I looked toward the closet. Both dresses still hung there. I had returned neither because returning them required admitting there would be no occasion. "So do I said. She seemed to expect more. "How was the trip?" I asked. "Beautiful. Too much sun." Evan tried to snorkel and swallowed half the ocean. He never learned to breathe calmly through his mouth. That is a very specific failure. He has several. She laughed. The sound opened a door, but only for a second. Marlene. He's hurt. I know. He thinks you wanted him to prove he loved you by changing the wedding. I wanted him not to misrepresent our family. I understand your distinction. It isn't a distinction. To him it is. Then he should call me. He doesn't know what to say. He told me not to come. He could start there. He said maybe. I know what he says. Caroline went quiet. I'm not going to carry messages between you, she said. You called me. I called because I miss you. That softened me before I could defend against it. I miss you too, I said. Can I come by sometime? Yes. She did not choose a time. The second call came after dinner at her parents' house. I could tell because Frank was speaking loudly somewhere behind her. Quick question, Caroline said. Did Evan know how to make that baked fish before he met us? What baked fish? The one with mustard and breadcrumbs. Yes. My dad keeps telling people he taught him. Evan learned it from Leonard. I thought so. Why? Nothing. Dad was praising him tonight and he said, See? We taught you more than business. Evan just smiled. I closed the book I had been reading. Did you correct him? No, I wasn't sure. You were sure enough to call me. I didn't want to embarrass my dad over a fish. I understood then. Not the whole thing, but the first small piece of what Caroline had begun to see. Correction always looked unnecessary when judged against the comfort it disrupted. It's only dinner, I said. That's what Evan said. Neither of us spoke. Then Frank called from the other room. Caroline, tell him about the Christmas trip. I have to go, she said. Of course. Are you doing anything for Thanksgiving? Renee and her sister are coming here. Mrs. Alvarez, too. I thought you always spent it with Denise. Denise is going to her husband's family. Oh, what are you doing? Mom's hosting. Diane. Yes. The correction came gently. Evan said he might invite you. She added, he has my number. Thanksgiving was 3 weeks away. Evan called 2 days before it. I was in the grocery store holding 2 jars of cranberry sauce and trying to remember which kind Renee considered morally acceptable. Hey, Ma, he said. Hello. What are you doing Thursday? I'm having dinner here. With who? Renee, her sister, and Mrs. Alvarez. We're eating at the Delaney's at 2. You could come. I put 1 jar in the cart. Thank you, but I have plans. You could bring them. All 3? Sure. Did you ask Diane? A pause. I'm sure it would be fine. Then no. Why? Because inviting 4 additional people to somebody else's dinner 2 days beforehand is not fine. You could come alone. I invited people to my house. You can still have your dinner. Come for dessert. What time? I don't know. 5? 6? So I should leave my guests and come when you're nearly finished. I'm trying to include you. The words were identical to the ones he had used beside the cufflinks in my kitchen. I set the second jar down harder than I intended. I already have somewhere I'm included, I said. Why does everything have to become a statement? It was an answer. It sounded like a statement. Then stop asking questions if you only want one answer. A shopper reached past me for cranberry sauce, gave me a concerned glance, and moved quickly away. Evan lowered his voice. This is what I mean. I invite you, and somehow I'm wrong. You invited me 2 days before Thanksgiving to join somebody else's dinner after mine. Because I thought you might want to see me, I do. Then come. You can come here. When? Whenever you and Caroline are free. Not between other things. Not on your way somewhere. He sighed. We're busy, Ma. So am I. With what? The question came out too quickly. I looked at the cart in front of me. Rolls, celery, onions, 2 bottles of wine, and a chocolate pie Mrs. Alvarez had requested, with great specificity. My life, I said. That isn't what I meant. I know. He was quiet for several seconds. Maybe I can stop by Friday morning, he said. We're driving to the mountains around noon. I pictured him checking the time, accepting coffee, staying 40 minutes, then leaving before anything difficult could begin. No, I said. No? Come when you have time to be here. I'm offering time. You're offering what's left. That's unfair. It may be, but it's still no. I expected anger. Instead, his voice became distant. You always used to want whatever time I could give you. I held the cart handle with both hands. I know, I said. He waited, but I did not take it back. He hung up without saying goodbye. I stood in the grocery aisle until another shopper asked whether I needed both kinds of cranberry sauce. I don't know, I said. She backed away as if I might involve her in a larger problem. I bought both. Thanksgiving was louder than I expected. Renee's sister, Gloria, arrived with sweet potatoes and an opinion about my dining room curtains. Mrs. Alvarez brought the metal watering can because she had filled it with flowers and saw no reason to transfer them into something designed for that purpose. Renee carved the turkey badly. Gloria corrected her technique. Mrs. Alvarez ate the pieces while they argued. At 2:30, Evan texted, "Happy Thanksgiving, Ma. Love you." I looked around my table before answering. Renee had gravy on her sleeve. Gloria was explaining why nobody under 60 knew how to season greens. Mrs. Alvarez had begun opening the second bottle of wine without consulting anyone. Happy Thanksgiving. Love you too. A photograph followed. Evan and Caroline stood behind Diane's table with Paige, Frank, and several people I did not recognize. Everyone wore coordinated shades of rust and brown. Frank had his hand on Evan's shoulder. I did not enlarge the photograph. At 4, my guests helped clear the table. At 4:10, Renee and Gloria began fighting over whether helping meant rinsing dishes or loading them. Mrs. Alvarez took another slice of pie and said she believed strongly in letting families resolve their own problems. Evan did not come for dessert. I had not expected him, which did not stop me from glancing through the front window every time headlights slowed on our street. The green dress remained in my closet through Christmas. The champagne one stayed too. They became garments for 2 separate versions of a day that had not happened. Evan and I exchanged gifts by mail. He sent me a heated blanket and a framed photograph from the wedding. It showed him alone, standing beside a window in his tuxedo, Leonard's cufflinks visible against his shirt. I stared at it for a long time. There were hundreds of photographs he could have chosen. He had selected the one Denise sent me on the wedding day, though this was the finished version, brighter and carefully cropped. Frank and the gray box were no longer in the frame. I put it on the mantel. I sent Evan the cordless drill he had mentioned wanting before the wedding. Leonard would have considered the brand overpriced, which was partly why I chose it. "Thank you, Ma. This is great. You're welcome." "Don't use it to build a patio," he replied with a laughing face. We did not speak on Christmas Day. He called Christmas Eve while I was carrying food into Renee's house. We talked for 9 minutes about traffic, weather, and the heated blanket. At the end, he said, "We should get together after the holidays." Yes. Maybe brunch. Maybe. Neither of us chose a date. Caroline came to my house in January carrying my blue casserole dish. I had loaned it to her the previous spring before wedding planning required every object to have a deadline. "I'm cleaning cabinets," she said. "You came all the way here to return a dish." I found the lid. That is a major event. She held it up. "It actually fits. Come in." Her hair was pulled into a loose knot. She wore leggings, a long sweater, and no wedding ring. I noticed. I also knew better than to look twice. She set the casserole dish on my counter and saw Evan's photograph on the mantel. "He sent you that one?" "Yes." I helped him pick it. "Thank you." He said you'd like the cufflinks. "I do." She walked closer to the photograph. He wore them through the whole trip. The cufflinks? He forgot to take them off after the reception. We got to the hotel, and he still had them on. He fell asleep in his shirt. I smiled. Leonard did that after our wedding. One shoe, too. Evan kept both shoes on. Then you married the improved version. She laughed, but it faded quickly. "Coffee?" I asked. "Please." While I filled the machine, Caroline found 2 mugs without asking. She still knew where things were. That hurt differently from losing someone completely. We sat at the table. "How are you?" I asked. "Fine. Would you like another answer available?" She wrapped both hands around her mug. "Evan and I had a fight." "I'm sorry, it was about fish." I waited. My dad told that story again at dinner, the baked fish. He said he taught Evan after we started dating. "What did Evan say?" He laughed. "And what did you say?" "I told Dad Leonard taught him." I took a sip of coffee. "Dad got embarrassed," she continued. "Then he said it was an easy mistake because Evan always acted like he learned it at our house. Evan said I was correcting him to make a point." "Were you?" "Yes." That answer made me like her again, which was not convenient either. "What point?" I asked. "That it keeps happening. Dad says he taught Evan to negotiate. Mom says she taught him to host. Paige says she taught him to write about himself. They're not trying to steal anything, they believe him, because he lets them." I said that. "How did it go?" "He slept on the sofa." "That seems extreme for baked fish. It wasn't about the fish." "No, it rarely is." Caroline rotated the mug between her palms. "He said, I only care now because the wedding is over and I don't have to risk anything." I said nothing. "He was right," she added. The honesty of it silenced the answer I had been preparing. She looked at me. I read the biography and liked it. I know. I liked the idea that my family had given him something he never had. It made us seem important. You are important. That isn't the same. No. I thought your objection was about wanting equal credit. I didn't understand that credit was the problem. I traced the rim of my cup. "What happened to your ring?" I asked. She looked down at her hand. "It's at the jeweler. A stone was loose." "Good." She smiled slightly. "Were you afraid to ask?" I was deciding whether I wanted the answer. "We're not separating. I'm glad." "Are you?" "Yes. I don't want your marriage to fail." "Even after the wedding?" "The wedding was one day. A very expensive day." "So I heard." She pushed her hair back. "I don't know how to help him. You're his wife, not his correction. He says he doesn't know how to come back from this without admitting that everything he felt was wrong. His feelings weren't wrong. That's what I told him. The story was wrong. That's also what I told him. Then you've done enough." She looked toward the framed photograph. "He misses you. He knows where I live. That's what he says about you. Then we remain impressively alike." Caroline reached across the table and took my hand. "I'm sorry," she said. "For what?" "For helping him make you disappear." The words were too exact. I looked at our joined hands. "Thank you," I said. She began to cry silently. I moved my chair beside hers and held her. It was not forgiveness for everything. It was not a new alliance against Evan. It was simply comfort, and I let it remain that size. When she left, she took the green dress. "I can return it," she said. "That would be good." "What about the champagne one?" "That one has committed crimes. I'm not releasing it." She smiled and carried the garment bag to her car. Evan called the following Sunday. "Can I come over?" he asked. "When?" "Today." I looked at the clock. It was 11:15. "What do you have afterward?" "Nothing." "Tomorrow?" "Work." "Tonight?" "Nothing." I sat down. "How long are you asking to stay?" "As long as it takes. That frightened me more than a 40-minute visit." "All right," I said. "Come for dinner." He arrived at 4 with a loaf of bread and no Caroline. "Where is she?" I asked. "At home." "Is everything all right?" She said I should come alone. He held out the bread. It was from the bakery I liked, still warm through the paper. "Peace offering?" I asked. "Carbohydrate. Safer." I let him in. For the first hour, we avoided the reason he was there. Evan tightened a loose handle on my kitchen cabinet with the overpriced drill. I made stew. He complained that my knives were dull and sharpened 2 of them. It was easy to remember how we had loved each other when we had objects between us. At dinner, he ate 2 bowls. "This is good," he said. "You used to hate it." "I used to be stupid." Past tense? He smiled. "I walked into that." "You did." The smile lingered, then disappeared. He set down his spoon. "I'm sorry you missed the wedding." My body became alert. "I'm sorry, too. I wish you had come. I wish you had wanted me there without requiring my agreement. I did want you there. Peacefully." He rubbed his thumb across a mark in the table. "I was angry," he said, "when I told you maybe not to come. Why didn't you take it back? I thought you'd come anyway." The answer was so simple I almost laughed. "Caroline told me that. I kept thinking you'd walk in, even after the ceremony started." I pictured him under the arbor, one hand in his pocket. "When you didn't," he continued, "I told myself you were making a point. I was keeping a boundary. It felt like punishment. It felt like loss to me." He looked down. "I don't know how to separate those," he said. "Maybe you don't get to." We cleared the table together. He washed while I dried, both of us speaking to the sink instead of each other. "Frank changed his toast," I said. "He did. Not enough." "No. Did you ask him to?" "Caroline did." I put a bowl into the cabinet. "Did you say anything when he used the phrase about being raised after childhood?" "No. Why?" "Because I agreed with him." I closed the cabinet. Evan turned off the water. "I need you to understand something," he said. "The Delaney's did change me. I learned things there I hadn't learned at home. I have never denied that. But every time I tried to talk about it, you heard that you failed. Because you described their influence as rescue." He dried his hands slowly. "When I first started dating Caroline, I exaggerated," he said. "The kitchen seemed to narrow around us. What did you exaggerate? How bad things were." He folded the towel once, then again. "Why?" Frank liked stories. Everybody at that table had one. Paige had traveled alone. Caroline had left a job she hated. Frank built his business from nothing. I felt ordinary. So you made us worse. I made myself sound resilient. The honesty was ugly enough to be real. He sat at the table. I remained standing. "At first it was little things," he said. "I said money was tighter than it was. I said Dad was harder on me than he was. After a while, they had this picture of me as somebody who'd built himself without much help. You liked it." "Yes." The word barely carried. And when they helped me change firms, when they included me, it fit the story. I was the guy who had finally found people who believed in him. "We believed in you." "I know." "Did you know then?" He looked at me. "Yes." I sat across from him because my legs no longer trusted me. "The biography wasn't Paige's invention," he said. "She wrote it from what I had been telling them for years. I know that now." "No, you don't know all of it." His voice cracked slightly. "I read the first draft before Caroline did. It said the Delaney's welcomed me like a son. I changed it to raised, to helped raise me." Paige made the sentence smoother later. I stared at him. "You wrote it, part of it. You asked me to approve your own sentence. Yes. Why?" He pressed his hands flat on the table. "Because approving it myself felt dishonest. The answer was worse than any excuse. If you approved it," he said, "then I thought maybe it meant the story wasn't really hurting you. Maybe it meant I hadn't done anything wrong." I could hear the refrigerator, the pipes, the little click of the Apple clock moving 1 minute forward. "You didn't come here for permission," I said. "You came here for innocence." His face folded. I leaned toward him. "The deepest wound was never that sentence, Evan. It was your need for me to certify that disappearing me did not count as betrayal." Evan did not defend himself. He lowered his head and covered his mouth with one hand. For a few seconds, I saw only the crown of his hair and the silver wedding band against his cheek. "I know," he said. "You know now?" I knew. Then. That answer should have made me angrier. Instead, it took away the last place where anger could hide. I sat back. "How much of our life did you change?" He wiped his face with both hands. "I didn't invent a different childhood. You just improved the lighting. I told true stories in ways that made them sound worse. Give me one. He looked toward the kitchen window. Dad making me pay him back for the car repair. You drove over a parking barrier. I know. He paid the mechanic, then had you work with him on Saturdays. I told Frank Dad refused to help me after an accident. You left out the part where we paid the bill. Yes. What else? When you took the second shift. To cover your tuition. I said you were never home. I closed my eyes briefly. That one found a new place to hurt. I missed you, he said. That part was true. So was the reason. I know. Did you tell them the reason? No. The Apple clock ticked ahead with its usual confidence. Evan leaned forward. I'm not saying I had some terrible childhood. I know I didn't. But there were things I was angry about that I never said. You could have said them to me. I didn't know how. You found a way to say them to everyone else. I found a way to say something that made me look good. There was no self-pity in his voice. I appreciated that, though appreciation was a small plate at a table crowded with other things. What were you angry about? I asked. He thought before answering. That Dad worried about everything, that you worked so much, that whenever I wanted something expensive, I had to hear what it cost in hours, that after he died, I couldn't tell whether you needed me or wanted me. I wanted you, I know that now. You knew it then. I knew you loved me. I didn't always know whether coming home was for me or for you. I looked down at my hands. The answer was both, I said. I know. And I did make you responsible for me sometimes. He nodded but did not seize the admission as proof. I should not have called you 3 times on your father's birthday, I said. I should not have left that message. You remember it? I regretted it before the call ended. You never apologized. No. The words sat there. I'm sorry, I said. You were allowed to have a day that wasn't arranged around my grief. His eyes filled again. Thank you. But you were not raised in grief. You were 21 when he died. I know. Your father worried because he loved badly sometimes. I worked because I loved practically. Neither of us was perfect. But we were there. You were. And after he died, I stayed. He nodded. I had wanted that acknowledgement for so long that receiving it did not feel like triumph. It felt like pressure released from a limb, painful as blood returned. Evan looked toward the framed wedding photograph on the mantel. You put it up. I like it. I wasn't sure you would. Your father's cufflinks looked good. He touched one wrist, remembering. I looked for you during the ceremony, he said. I imagined that. I thought you'd come late and sit in the back. I almost did. Why didn't you? Because I would have spent the day helping you believe you hadn't asked me to disappear. He nodded slowly. I was furious after, he said. Every time somebody asked where you were, I had to decide what to tell them. What did you say? That you weren't feeling well. I laughed once. I know, he said. It was cowardly. Did people believe you? Some did. Denise didn't. Denise has never believed anything polite. Caroline finally told her I asked you not to come. Caroline told her the truth. She was angry with me. Those can happen together. He looked toward the sink. The day was beautiful. I saw. It was also wrong without you. I let that reach me without pretending it repaired anything. You will always have wedding pictures that I'm not in, I said. His mouth tightened. I'm not saying that to punish you. It is what this cost. I know. No, I need you to understand. We can repair our relationship. We cannot go back and put me at your wedding. I understand. You don't get to ask me to act as if it no longer matters once you apologize. I won't. I believed that he meant it. I did not yet know whether he could do it. He folded and unfolded the dish towel. What do you want me to do? I don't know. There has to be something. There doesn't. His face fell. That is part of being sorry, I said. Sometimes there is no task that buys you release. I'm not trying to buy it. Aren't you? He looked down. I reached across the table and took the towel away from him before he reduced it to thread. You can start by telling the Delaney's the truth, I said. About what? Everything you just told me. His eyes lifted. You want me to sit them down and confess? I want you to stop letting them love a story you created. They do love me. I know. They won't stop because I exaggerated things. Then why are you afraid? He leaned back. What if Frank thinks I used them? Did you? Not deliberately. Evan. He winced. Maybe, at first. I wanted him to respect me. And Diane? She liked taking care of me. You like being taken care of. Yes. None of that makes their love false. It means you owe them the same truth you owed me. He rubbed both palms over his knees. Do you want me to correct everybody who was at the wedding? No. The biography is still online. I don't care about winning a correction in front of strangers. You cared when strangers were going to read it. I cared that you asked me to approve it. I cared that your new family believed it. I cared that the wedding made it official. Changing a web page now won't change what happened. I can still change it. You should. But don't mistake editing for repair. He looked almost embarrassed. Paige says that too. Paige and I have finally found common ground. He smiled faintly. When he left, it was after 10. We stood in the doorway without knowing whether to hug. Evan solved it by stepping forward before either of us could negotiate. I held him. He felt broader than Leonard and somehow, for 1 second, younger than the man who had entered my kitchen with bread. I love you, Ma, he said. I love you too. Love was not forgiveness. Neither of us pretended otherwise. Caroline called 3 days later. Evan talked to my parents, she said. How did it go? My mother cleaned the refrigerator during the conversation. That bad, she removed every shelf. Was there yelling? No, my family doesn't yell when silence can produce more guilt. That sounds familiar. She laughed weakly. Dad asked Evan if he thought we only liked him because he had suffered. What did Evan say? Yes. I closed my eyes. How did Frank take that? He went outside. Did he come back? Eventually. Caroline lowered her voice. Paige wants everyone to have dinner Sunday. Why? She thinks there should be one conversation with all the people involved. That sounds like a meeting. It is definitely a meeting. She has an agenda. Of course she does. Will you come? I did not answer immediately. Evan wants you there, she added. He asked me to say that exactly. That mattered. All right, I said. The Delaney's house looked unchanged when I returned. The outdoor lights came on too early. Frank's SUV sat near the garage. Paige's convertible occupied 2 spaces. Diane opened the door wearing jeans and a plain gray sweater. Without the bow at her neck or her event-ready smile, she looked older and more approachable. Marlene, she said. Diane. She started to hug me, hesitated, then did it anyway. I don't know what the correct greeting is, she whispered. This is fine. Good. In the dining room, Paige had placed a notepad beside every plate. I took mine to the sideboard. No notes? She asked. I lived it. Frank entered carrying a pitcher of water. I have been instructed not to make a toast. By whom? All of them. Wise. I prepared nothing. I believe you. He nearly smiled. Evan and Caroline arrived together. He kissed my cheek. She squeezed my hand beneath the table before sitting beside him. Dinner was lasagna, salad, and bread. Nobody praised the food because praise might have sounded like avoidance. Frank ate 2 servings in silence. Diane broke hers into smaller pieces without finishing. After the plates were cleared, Paige opened a folder. No, Evan said. She looked at him. I don't want to do this from a document. Paige shut the folder. He placed his hands on the table. Then my son told them. He told Frank about the car repair and the parking barrier. He told Diane why I worked the second shift. He told Paige that unsettled had been a word he used because it sounded serious without requiring evidence. He explained how their admiration made each story easier to repeat and harder to correct. No one interrupted him. He spoke about Leonard worrying, my hours and the years after his father's death. He did not turn our home into a paradise to compensate for having called it unstable. He said there had been heaviness. He said he had sometimes felt responsible for me. He also said I had raised him in a safe house, paid bills on time, attended everything that mattered, and loved him without ever making him earn a place. I let you believe I arrived here with nothing, he said. That wasn't true. Frank's face had gone red. Why? Diane asked. Because being rescued made me interesting. She looked wounded. We didn't need you to be interesting. I know that now. We loved you because Caroline loved you. I know. Do you? Evan looked at her. I'm trying to. Diane pressed a napkin to her mouth. Frank leaned forward. Were we a joke to you? No. A useful family with a boat and some business contacts? Frank, Caroline said. No, I want to know. Evan did not look away. At first, some of that impressed me. Then I loved you. Both are true. Frank sat back. It was not the answer he wanted. It was better than one designed for him. Paige opened her folder again, removed a sheet, and slid it toward me. It was a revised biography. The passage about an unsettled childhood was gone. In its place were 3 plain sentences naming Leonard and me, acknowledging Leonard's death when Evan was 21, and describing the Delaney's as the family he gained through Caroline. I changed the online version, Paige said. I know that's not enough. No, I said, but it's accurate. The printed copies still exist. I'm not asking anyone to hunt them down. I'm sorry I defended the language after you told me it was wrong. Thank you. Diane looked at me. I'm sorry I allowed welcome to become ownership. The phrase surprised me. I liked that Evan called me Mom, she continued. I still do. I told myself love only adds. I didn't look at what he was subtracting to make room for us. Frank rubbed one hand across his face. I'm sorry, I called him half-formed. Thank you. I meant that he relaxed. I know what you meant now. He could have told me about the 5-year plan thing sooner. He was afraid of you. I'm delightful. No one answered him. I turned to Evan. There is something I need them to know too, I said. After Leonard died, I leaned on you more than I should have. His eyes widened slightly. You did feel responsible for me sometimes. You did feel guilty when you wanted distance. That part of what you told Caroline was true. Diane looked between us. But it was one chapter, Evan said, not the whole book. No, I agreed, and you didn't do the best you could. I raised an eyebrow. He shook his head. That came out wrong. Very. You did more than survive raising me. You raised me. The room stayed quiet. No one applauded. No one reached for a toast. Frank looked at the table. Diane cried without hiding it. Paige wrote something on her notepad, caught me watching, and crossed it out. Caroline put her hand over Evan's. The correction did not feel victorious. It felt like 6 adults sitting among the remains of a story that had once made everyone except me comfortable. When we left, Evan walked me to my car. Can I call Sunday? He asked. Yes. At the usual time? Yes. He opened my car door, then stood there as if he had another question. I don't know how long this takes, he said. Neither do I. What should I do, meanwhile? Don't disappear when it becomes ordinary. He nodded. Sunday would be easy. One honest dinner could be mistaken for change. What came after was where I would learn whether my son wanted forgiveness or a relationship. He called at 10:45 the following Sunday. I let it ring twice before answering. Not as punishment. I needed 2 rings to put down my coffee and remind myself that one honest dinner had not returned us to the week before the wedding. Hey, Ma, hello. How are you? I'm all right. You? Good. We discussed the weather. Then we discussed my car, which had started on the first try for 6 consecutive days and was therefore, in Evan's opinion, preparing an ambush. After 7 minutes, we had run out of safe topics. I don't know what I'm supposed to say now, he admitted. You don't have to perform. I'm not. You sound like you're calling a client after a complaint." He laughed quietly. "I have a checklist. You do not. I wrote down 3 things not to say. What are they? I'm not telling you. Then I'll have said them." That was the first Sunday. He called the next one too. On the third, he asked about work and listened to the answer, including a story about all 3 Garys showing up to receiving at once and blaming management for the resulting confusion. On the 4th Sunday, he said, "Can I come by next weekend? What do you have afterward?" "Nothing." "What do you have before?" "Nothing." "Then yes." He arrived at noon and stayed until nearly 8. We did not discuss the wedding. He changed the filter over my stove, tightened the legs on the dining table, and complained about the cordless drill I had bought him. "It has too much torque," he said. "It costs too much money to criticize. I'm saying it's powerful. You said the brand was overpriced." That was Dad. You agree with him more now that he can't argue back. We ordered Chinese food and ate at the table where the welcome bags had once stood. Before he left, he carried out a bag of things I had been meaning to donate. Ordinary. That was what I had asked for, and ordinary turned out to require patience from both of us. There was no dramatic moment when trust returned. It came in pieces too small to admire. Evan called when he said he would. If he had to cancel, he gave me another date instead of disappearing behind soon. When I said no to an invitation, he stopped treating my refusal as a coded attack. I stopped making myself permanently available. That part was harder than it sounds. One Thursday, Evan called to ask if he could come for dinner the next evening. "I'm going to a movie with Renee," I said. "You hate movie theaters. I hate people talking in movie theaters. Renee has promised not to." "What are you seeing?" "I don't know." "You already bought tickets?" "Yes." "For a movie you don't know?" She described it badly. He was quiet for a second. "Okay," he said. "What about Saturday?" "Saturday works." After we hung up, I sat with the discomfort of not having rearranged my life for him. It felt unnatural, like wearing a watch on the wrong wrist. The movie was terrible. Renee whispered throughout it. "You promised," I told her. "I didn't know it would need help." At work the following Monday, she leaned into my office and looked at the untouched inventory reports. "You haven't reorganized anything in weeks. I've been busy." "With what?" "My life." She pointed at me. "See? Now it sounds convincing." Caroline began visiting again. Sometimes Evan came with her. Sometimes he did not. She returned from the jeweler with her wedding ring repaired and wore it without making sure I noticed. One afternoon, she helped me carry the champagne dress to a donation center. "Are you sure?" she asked as we stood beside the collection bin. "No. Do you want to take it home?" "No. It could be shortened. It could be set on fire." She laughed. "That would improve the color." We donated it. The green dress had gone back to the shop. Caroline said the clerk remembered us. "What did she say?" "She asked whether the wedding had been canceled." "What did you tell her?" "That only the dress was." Diane called me occasionally. At first, each conversation was so careful it exhausted us both. She asked permission before mentioning Evan. I thanked her too formally for ordinary things. We behaved like diplomats representing nations that had recently reopened trade. Then she called one afternoon to complain that Frank had purchased 12 pounds of salmon because it was discounted. "There are 2 of us," she said. "He believes in preparing for maritime shortages. He says he can freeze it. He can. He's labeled every package Frank's famous fish. Have Evan teach him the mustard recipe." The silence lasted 1 second. Then Diane said, "Leonard's recipe." "Yes, I'll write that on the packages." "You don't have to." "I know, that was different." The corrected biography remained online until the couple's wedding website expired. I looked at it once. Paige's new version was plain and accurate. It named me. It named Leonard. It said the Delaney's had welcomed Evan as an adult and become part of his life through Caroline. Seeing the correction did not produce the feeling I had imagined before the wedding. There was no surge of justice. The first version had already been framed, printed, photographed, and carried home by guests. Both versions existed. So did the wedding photographs. The first time I went to Evan and Caroline's house for dinner, a large one hung above their fireplace. They stood beneath the arbor with Frank, Diane, and Paige. All 5 of them looked beautiful. On a side table nearby was the portrait Evan had sent me, the one showing Leonard's cufflinks. I must have looked too long. "We can move the family picture," Evan said. "Why? I don't want it to hurt you." "It does." He looked at the floor. "That doesn't mean you should hide it," I continued. "It is your wedding photograph. I wish you were in it." "So do I." Caroline stepped closer to him. Neither of them tried to offer a solution. We ate baked fish with mustard and breadcrumbs. "Who taught you this?" I asked Evan. He gave me a cautious look. "Dad." Good answer. "It's also true." "I know." He had overcooked it slightly. Leonard had done the same thing every time and blamed the oven. Not every visit went well. One Sunday, Evan arrived already irritated after breakfast with the Delaney's. Frank had corrected a story in front of friends, making a point of saying Leonard, not he, had taught Evan how to negotiate with repairmen. "Now everything has to become a correction," Evan complained. "I set down the groceries I was unpacking. You created that problem." "I know. Do you?" He glared at me. I glared back. Then he left. 6 months earlier, I would have called before his car reached the end of the street. I would have told him I understood he was tired and that we should not let one remark ruin a Sunday. I finished putting away the groceries. 2 hours later, he returned with coffee. "I was being an ass," he said. "Yes." Frank was trying. "Yes. I don't want to spend the rest of my life being corrected. Then stop telling stories that need it." He handed me the coffee. "I knew you were going to say that. You could save money by hearing my voice in your head." He stayed for dinner. That was repair too. Not never failing, returning without being chased. As the months passed, Evan became less eager to divide his life into the people who had burdened him and the people who had saved him. He still spent time with the Delaneys. He still called Diane Mom. The first time I heard it after our reconciliation, something in me tightened. I did not pretend otherwise. "That still bothers me sometimes," I told him later. "Do you want me to stop?" "No." "Then what do you want me to do?" "Know that it costs me something until it doesn't." He nodded. He did not explain that love could add. He did not accuse me of keeping score. He simply knew. In return, I listened when he spoke about the years after Leonard died, not to correct him or compare memories. I learned that he had once sat in his car outside my house for 40 minutes because he could not bear to come inside and find me crying. I learned that he had turned down a job interview in another state without telling me because he thought I would be alone. I apologized again, without adding that I had never asked him to do either of those things. He admitted I had never asked. Both facts remained. On what would have been Leonard's 67th birthday, I planned a small dinner. In previous years, I had either ignored the day or treated it like a sacred event nobody could survive incorrectly. This time I invited Evan and Caroline, Renee, and Mrs. Alvarez. Diane sent a lemon cake. "Did she make this?" I asked when Evan carried it into my kitchen. "She ordered it." "Good. Your second mother is a realist." He paused, searching my face. "That was a joke," I said. "I know. I'm adapting to your healthier communication. Put the cake down." He wore a navy jacket over an open-collared white shirt. When he reached for the plates, silver flashed at his wrists. I stared. Leonard's cufflinks. "With that shirt?" I asked. "I know there's no tie. Your father is haunting you over it. He can take it up with me later." I touched one of the silver squares. The repaired clasp held. Dinner was noisy and imperfect. Mrs. Alvarez brought her own hot sauce and offended Evan by putting it on the fish. Renee told a story about Leonard switching labels on boxes at one of our warehouse picnics, which I knew he had not done but allowed because it sounded like him. We did not make speeches. After dinner, Caroline brought the lemon cake to the table. She had placed 2 candles on it, a 6 and a 7. I didn't know whether this was strange, she said. It's exactly strange enough, I told her. Evan lit the candles. I blew them out because nobody could agree who else should. While I cut the cake, Caroline noticed a framed photograph on the bookshelf. Leonard and Evan stood beside the sloping patio, smiling with the reckless confidence of men who had ignored a level. Is that the patio? She asked. The ground was deceptive, Evan said. I've heard that defense. She picked up another photograph, one I had set behind it. Evan leaned over the open hood of his first car while Leonard pointed at something inside. What happened to the car? Caroline asked. He drove over a parking barrier, I said. I was avoiding another vehicle. There was no other vehicle. There might have been. Caroline smiled at me. Tell me the story. For years, I would have told it gladly. I would have supplied every detail, corrected every exaggeration, and made myself keeper of the family version. I looked at my son. He remembers, I said. Everyone turned to Evan. He glanced down at the cufflinks, then began. He told Caroline about the parking barrier. He admitted there was no other vehicle. He explained that Leonard paid the mechanic and made him work Saturdays until the debt was cleared. He said I picked up extra hours that month because the tuition bill and repair had landed together, though I had never told him until years later. He described Leonard leaning over that engine, worried and funny, and certain a socket wrench could correct both the car and his son's judgment. He told it without making our life smaller or cleaner than it had been, and he got every part right, including me.